Slowdown. You got a little bit of delay 33rd South as well. 201 freeway delays gone. Foothills looking much better. We do have some Highway 89 slowdowns, though, going south, Highway 89, approaching Oak Hills Drive. This is the Place Heritage Park, your family place for summer fun. Learn Utah history while mining for gold, exploring trails, shopping, and eating at the Huntsman Grill. Visit thisistheplace.org. I'm Andy Farnsworth in the KSL Traffic Center.
Well, this week should be warm with highs in the 80s today and tomorrow. Clouds are going to linger, bringing chances of rain the rest of the week. And we're going to stay warm, but very pleasant. Highs in the 70s Thursday, Friday, Saturday before we sneak back into the 80s on Sunday. And right now in Salt Lake City, let me just give a little refresh here. It is 64 degrees at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. This is Utah's all-day companion for news.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio.
We start this abbreviated work week knowing that it doesn't appear that the economy is going to collapse and obliterate and implode on itself after all. Wow. Way
and
to go.
have you noticed that the
DC.
politicians are kind of making themselves look at to be the heroes, like they swept in, they saved the day of a disaster that they created in the first place. So before we dislocate our shoulder patting ourselves on the back, it was your fault in the first place. It's 9:08. It's time for the launch.
Sequence engaged.
Here are 3 things Debbie wants you to know.
Countdown. 3.
We'll talk a lot about that debt ceiling debate back in D.C., but also about this. Canceled. A major insurance provider telling new home buyers and business owners in California, bye-bye. They will not be offering insurance. Why? Well, in large part because of Mother Nature, wiping out infrastructure and the cost to rebuild. Well, here's my reaction to that. What if I couldn't get insurance on my home here in Utah at some point? Isn't it required as part of carrying or qualifying for a mortgage?
Yeah, well, not only for the car, but just insurance in general. Can't drive without insurance. I mean, there are so many problems. Are so scary to think that insurance companies are just going to blanketly decide, no, I'm not going to insure this state. And a state the size of California, more than 30 million people. It's 10 times the size of Utah. Utah? Are we next?
Countdown. 2.
Target reacting to backlash, pulling some of its Pride merchandise, saying store employees were enduring threats. And now this is the store I thought everyone loved, but it is losing billions in values since this controversy erupted. This is our hot topic in the 10 o'clock hour. And here's a spicy take from Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary. Dave, see if you agree.
You stay out of it. Read the room. What's your message? What are you selling? Who wants to buy this product? Do not get involved in partisan issues. You cannot win.
And right now, everything seems to be a partisan issue. Everything is seen through the lens of Republican or Democrat. What side is pushing their own agenda? Well, when you choose either or, then you alienate the other 50%. And if you're running a business, you need as many people as possible. Republicans, Democrats, independents, apolitical, totally political. You need everybody because business is cutthroat.
Launch. Countdown. 1.
Congratulations, D.C. Maybe we're going to avoid a default after all. Despite President Trump pushing for America to default on its debt. Remember, he just said this just a couple of weeks ago.
You're going to have to do a default because we're spending money like drunken sailors.
So
You know
just
the
to be clear,
expression.
Mr. President, you think the U.S. should default if the White House does not agree to the spending cuts Republicans
Well,
are
you
demanding?
might as well do it now because you'll do it later.
Yeah, this is just step 1. McCarthy and Biden, they got the handshake agreement, but this is step 1. Now they have to take this bill, to both sides. That might not be as easy as they hope.
Dave and Dujanovic.
The launch.
Commence.
The U.S. debt ceiling. In-depth coverage on KSL News Radio.
That handshake agreement you speak of, Dave, comes with a 99-page debt limit bill. Wow, they made it in under 100 pages. Speaker McCarthy says he's giving everybody 72 hours to read it before he puts it up for a vote.
And any negotiations attached to the debt ceiling is a Republican win. This is a win for the Republicans. Biden wanted a clean, no strings attached bill. He didn't get it. Is it enough for Republicans, though?
Some Republicans think the win is in name only, and the compromises made by the White House aren't nearly enough to earn their support. For example, here's Texas Republican Chip Roy.
We're just barreling towards an infinite amount of debt, and we've got to stop that. My constituents at home do not want that, so I'm going to be making that loud and clear to my Republican colleagues that this is not a deal that we should be taking.
Lindsay Watts, ABC News correspondent out of Washington. You just heard from Representative Chip Roy. What's the appetite for lawmakers to agree to this negotiated deal?
You know, there's a lot of talk now about who is going to be voting for this, who is going to be voting against it. And thus far, we have not seen a lot of pushback from Democrats. But as of this morning, 9 House Republicans said they plan to vote no. There are several more who've signaled they will vote no. We have at least one senator saying he's going to vote no. My thought is that there will be enough Democratic support that this will pass. But, you know, we got to watch this closely today. This is going to be going to the House Rules Committee, so we'll see what Republicans there are going to do, and then it's expected to go before a vote in the full House tomorrow and then go right to the Senate. So, you know, it's not a done deal yet. There was much celebration when this deal was finally reached between the president and House Speaker. They're now both claiming victory after all of these weeks of negotiation. And, you know, it just depends on who you ask. You heard from Roy there, and then there's another GOP senator who said that Republicans were outsmarted by Biden, the feeling that they did not get everything they wanted by a long shot. So, you know, we only have less than a week left before this catastrophic default that we've been talking about for so long, and there are still several more steps that need to happen to avoid it.
Thank you for joining us, Lindsay Watts, ABC News correspondent out of Washington.
And just a side note is that Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen had backed up the default doom and gloom date just a few days, and that kind of happened over Memorial Day weekend. Looks like June 5th is more of the target date. Still, this is right. Our backs are right up against the wall right now.
Yeah, and as you heard Lindsay describe, it will be very, very important to see what happens in the Senate. The Senate needs 60 votes to pass this bill. Senator Mike Lee, got 43 Republicans to sign a letter about a month ago that said they wouldn't support any bill that didn't have dramatic spending cuts. Are these dramatic enough to get Republicans on board?
I would not say dramatic is the word that I would choose, but let's go through the scorecard. Let's go through the debt ceiling scorecard and see if y'all think this is a Republican win. Next.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Dave and Debbie are just getting the talk started.
From 1 to 3, check out Inside Sources.
Get a look behind the curtain in D.C. from Boyd Matheson.
Your all-day companions are here
on KSL News Radio.
It may be summer, but the news isn't slowing down this year.
Ankle deep water at Wasatch Hollow.
Guilty on all charges. State leaders going into a special session.
Make KSL your go-to each morning this summer. Utah's Morning News with Tim and Amanda starts at 5. We talk through the biggest stories with Dave and Dujanovic at 9 and Boyd Matheson at 1. Then drive home with key news updates with Jeff Kaplan from 3 to 7. Your all-summer companion for news. KSL News Radio.
Premium checking from America First Credit Union is so much more than a regular checking account. It's a saves you money, makes life easier, always has your back account, because it's absolutely loaded with fantastic benefits and features. In fact, it comes stocked with so much awesome stuff. It was voted Best Perks by Money.com. So make sure you're rocking more than a checking account. Head to America First and apply for the exclusive protection, perks, and paybacks of premium checking today. Subject to membership eligibility and conditions. Federally insured by NCUA. Since 1939, 89, America First has been helping people pursue their financial goals. And as we have, we've become one of the largest credit unions in the country. The reason why is simple. It's because every day we do our very best to help each person, family, and business we serve to realize their individual dreams and achieve financial well-being. True to our name, we always strive to put our members and employees first. So come join us and let us put you first. America First Credit Union. Federally insured by NCUA.
Attention companies in need of software developers. Discover the power of Ion Utah. They find software developers stat. Ion Utah, the ultimate solution for your talent needs. Get skilled software developers in no time. Don't let your projects suffer. Ion Utah connects you with top-tier software developers swiftly and efficiently. Unlock your company's full potential with Ion Utah, your partner in success. Ion Utah allows you to choose from onshore or offshore developers who can be scaled up or down depending on your needs. Contact Ion Utah. That's IONUtah.com at 385-412-1572 or text jobs to 57500 for more information. Results may vary based on demand and availability. Ion Utah strives to provide expedited services but cannot guarantee immediate availability in all cases. Ion Utah.
If you've got a honey-do list with electrical, plumbing, heating, or air conditioning projects on it, Any Hour Services can help. Call Any Hour Services, electrical, plumbing, heating, and air. anyhourservices.com.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 in the morning, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Jenny Taylor.
And I'm Michelle Scharf. We are excited to invite you to listen to our podcast, Relentlessly Resilient. Each week, a guest shares their own powerful stories of enduring challenges and the tools of resiliency they have learned along the way. Remember, whatever you do today, be kind. You have no idea the struggles other people are dealing with in their lives.
Find us on KSLpodcast.com, the KSL News Radio app, or your favorite podcast platform.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Tim Hughes. First, you can expect fewer parking spots at Bear Lake this summer as that water continues to rise. Second, the University of Utah softball team is heading to the Women's College World Series. And third, lawmakers have come to a debt ceiling deal, but still need to get enough votes to pass it. We'll look for a high today of 83 degrees. It's going to be dry this afternoon, and right now 64 in Salt Lake City. Let's get you back to David Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
The U.S. debt ceiling. In-depth coverage on KSL News Radio.
Remember, Republicans passed their own version of a bill that raised the debt limit, cut spending. It didn't go anywhere because it had no bipartisan support. And that is what led to those negotiations between House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and President Biden. They had to get together. They had to negotiate the current deal they came to terms on over the weekend. It's 99 pages, 72 hours for the House members to read through it before there's a vote this week.
Which is a small victory for lawmakers because typically they negotiate these deals and then they vote on them immediately before anyone even has a chance to read them. And typically these things are 1,000 pages or more. This thing came in under 100.
Oh, so I've been asking myself this question for the last 48 hours. Is this going to be a win for Republicans, or is it a loss? What's your first blush reaction before we get into some of the nitty-gritty details and see how our listeners feel about this?
Any negotiation was a win because Biden said, I want to pass a clean bill that has absolutely no strings attached. So as long as you're not passing that, technically, it's a win. Now, is it meaningful? Does it make real change? I guess that's the discussion. We're trying to figure out, did the Republicans get enough?
Utah Senator Mike Lee, of course, tweeted about this, put out a graphic about wins and losses with green check marks and big red X's. It's called the final debt ceiling deal. Let's walk through it. Let's walk through bits and pieces of it and see where you land on this. So that big number was the debt ceiling. On the Republicans' wish list was they wanted it at $1.5 trillion. What they got was $4 trillion.
Yeah, that's how much they had to raise it.
I think that's a wah for Republicans.
Yeah. Well,
you can't claim that as a victory.
No, right? I mean, that's what I think is so frustrating for Republicans is all that negotiation. They wanted 1.5 and they ended up with 2.5 times that. Yeah, that is a big loss and a huge frustration for the GOP.
You and I talked about work requirements for people, for example, on what we commonly refer to as food stamps, SNAP benefits. And we talked at length about these last week, about what's the current work requirement and what Republicans wanted. What the current work requirement is, it's like up to 49 years old. But what Republicans wanted to happen is for that age to be raised to 64 years old, where you have to work 20 hours a week or show that you're in some sort of a training program up to 64 years old, which matches Medicare, where Medicare kicks in. But what they got instead was a few extra years. So that work requirement extends to 54 years old if this bill passes.
And it was, what did you say, 49?
Yeah, it was 49. So they get a few years out of this deal for work requirements for people on benefits. However, I read it does not impact Medicaid at all.
No, it doesn't. To my understanding, and also to remember that this is for able-bodied folks. This is folks that can work. That is very clear in the bill. It says if you're healthy enough to work, then you should be required on some level to prove that you are either working a certain number of hours or you're at least trying to.
And we'll have more information on these work requirements in about 30 minutes. We're going to get Utahns Against Hunger on the line and ask them how this will impact people who are receiving those SNAP benefits.
And part of what makes this specifically so interesting to me about whether or not welfare should have a work requirement, the original welfare to work bill was passed by Bill Clinton. That was in 1996. So it was a Democratic president that originally said, we are going to wholesale change the welfare program, and that happened under Bill Clinton.
So if you're keeping score, and we are, so far it's looking like the Republicans are taking it in the teeth from what they wanted with that bill that passed the House several weeks ago, demanding spending caps, work requirement changes that are far greater than what they got.
And remember, everyone wants spending cuts until it's their favorite program. So let's talk about the Republicans' favorite program, defense.
Yeah. Well, what was it? On their wish list, I'm trying to remember this, Dave. On their wish list, the Republicans wanted to keep things flat.
Yeah, they didn't want to increase. They didn't want to cut. They just wanted basically military spending to rubber stamp it. We're not going to spend a ton more. We're not going to cut it.
So, and what they got was flat.
So there they go. They got what they wanted.
Okay. So that is
they didn't cut defense.
One win in the Republicans column. Dave and I talking about the debt ceiling bill. The compromise that was reached over the weekend, President Biden, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, and now it goes to the House and then will wind its way, we believe, is like early as maybe tomorrow or Thursday to the Senate if it passes the House. Let's talk about the IRS now and what the Republicans wanted with the IRS. Now, remember, there was that massive billion-dollar, I wouldn't call it a windfall, but it was a budget increase to the IRS. Part of that would go to updating their antiquated systems at the IRS and also hiring, I heard 87,000 new agents. I found that, like, where are you going to find those people?
Are there 87,000 wannabe IRS agents out there just waiting? Like, if they would just start hiring, I would jump on it.
That number sounded really inflated to me in order to freak Americans out because none of us want to be audited by the IRS. So when we hear that number, we freak out. Okay, whatever the case is, Republicans wanted to rescind the $80 billion to the IRS to hire those tens of thousands of new agents that are just waiting in the wings to be scooped up by the IRS. But what they got is a 2% reduction.
Yeah.
So
the vast majority of that $80 billion, that's going to be used. It's going to be used to expand the IRS. It's going to be used to for them to actually do their jobs in this expanded fashion. Now, the IRS, no question. There is no argument here that when you say they are working on antiquated systems, Debbie, they are sitting in production assembly lines doing things by hand, like red marker circling things and manually inputting things into the computer. The fact that they need things done to update their system, nobody is arguing that. The real fear was the 87,000 new agents that would be running around America auditing folks.
Yeah, I still find that hard to believe.
But
okay.
They fund it. If you fund it, you can probably find someone to take that job.
Let's talk about the COVID relief funds. On the Republicans' wish list, they wanted to reclaim some $50 billion unspent COVID funds that have been sort of in accounts in states across America and government agencies across America. So they wanted to rescind, they grabbed that $50 billion and bring it back to D.C. What they got $28 billion back.
Yeah, we're talking about trillions of dollars, and this is $50 billion. They claw back half of that.
It was important to them, though.
It was important.
Right, in this negotiation.
And I don't argue with them on this. Absolutely. COVID has been well over for more than 2 years. The fact that there are still COVID funds out there being spent is mind-boggling for me.
Walk me through the green initiatives as we wrap up our coverage of is this debt deal a win for Republicans or not? And so far, I'm feeling like Republicans caved, putting it mildly, caved to President Biden's wish list. But what's this green initiatives that's on this list of long list of things regarding this plan?
Well, you'll remember the Inflation Reduction Act had a bunch of things that had nothing to do with inflation, right?
Yes.
A bunch of programs and pork that was attached to it. Well, part of the Inflation Reduction Act had a ton, $1.2 trillion assigned for green initiatives. Basically, for companies, if they wanted to throw solar panels on, they would have these incentives, this money available, $1.2 trillion. Republicans wanted to repeal that $1.2 trillion. What they got? Nothing. Yeah, they didn't get any of that back. It doesn't. Well, now we talked about it for 8 minutes. Maybe Republicans did not run away with a lot of victories here.
How you started this conversation is that any negotiation is a win. How do you feel ending this conversation right now? And we're not quite through with it, but at this point, not so sure.
Yeah, still a win. Probably doesn't make a difference. Doesn't do much.
Let's talk about President Biden's favorite program of all, that student loan forgiveness plan. Why in the world did that go untouched? Way to go, Republicans.
9:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Tim Hughes. Let's look at some of our top stories this hour. The University of Utah headed to the Women's College World Series. KSL News Radio's youth sports insider Michelle Bodkin says this one is pretty special for head coach Amy Hogue.
Hogue was actually a player on the last softball team to go to the World Series. There had to be some just real deep personal feelings there And really all she could talk about is how this was just a major win and victory for everyone.
She also carried out with her players a tradition that started in 1994 of jumping into the pool in full uniform following the win. Their first opponent will be the Washington Huskies. That game scheduled for Thursday evening. Big and Little Cottonwood Canyons are now under the flood spotlight and will be at least for the next 2 weeks. Hydrologist consultant Brian McInerney tells KSL-TV how the forecast plays out will determine whether or not the two creeks could see major flooding.
Hot weather with bright sunshine for, say, a week to 10 days, we could produce some flooding in both of those.
McInerney says if we can escape the next 2 weeks, we should be in the clear. There is cooler temperatures, but also the chance of thunderstorms in the forecast, and he says Immigration and Red Butte creeks are no longer facing the risk of major flooding. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Tech genius to fraudster, Elizabeth Holmes reports to a Texas prison to begin serving her decade-long sentence today.
The claim from the young entrepreneur was groundbreaking.
We've made it possible to run comprehensive laboratory tests from a tiny sample or a few drops of blood.
Except that she hadn't. And the lie that Elizabeth Holmes told to investors has her headed to prison today. And while it's a minimum security women's detention camp, federal criminal defense attorney Candace Fields says
nothing compares to the experience she's going to have.
Elizabeth Holmes will be one of about 650 women at the prison 100 miles outside Houston. Jim Ryan, ABC News, Dallas.
Your money at this moment, the Dow down 143 points. That is 0.4%. The other indexes are all in the green, though. The S&P is up about 4 points, just barely holding on. The NASDAQ is up this hour by 77. Coming up, we will check your traffic and weather together in just a moment. But for right now, we'll just tell you that sunshine and warm temperatures are going to be coming into your forecast. Rain looks like Thursday, Friday, Saturday. KSL News Time, 9:33.
What do you need to hear in the morning to feel ready for the day?
Important news that happened overnight, the traffic you'll hit on the roads.
You'll be ready for your day with us.
Join Utah's Morning News 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
At aimyourdigital.com, we'll help you target the right audience, build your leads, and crush your quota. Take your business to the next level. Our digital marketing strategies help grow awareness of your product or service, all while building trust in your business. Our approach involves leveraging multiple tools and strategies to deliver exceptional results that are customized to your unique business needs. Don't wait to run out of sales leads. Keep your business growing. Get started with aimyourdigital.com today.
Experience the rail journey of a lifetime and see the Southwest like never before. It's the Rockies to the Red Rocks on board Rocky Mountaineer. You'll take in vast canyons and breathtaking mountains between Moab and Denver. You'll enjoy world-class, all-inclusive food and beverage service on board a glass-domed train with a view unimaginable. You'll stay one night in historic Glenwood Springs, Colorado, as you look forward to tomorrow's adventure, winding alongside towering canyons, breathtaking plains, and magnificent mountains. Rocky Mountaineer is truly a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Until May 31st, save up to $1,000 per couple on select travel dates this year. And as a Utah local, you can save an extra $100 per person. Seats are limited. Visit RockyMountaineer.com to book your Rocky Mountaineer adventure now.
Smart, connected, modern. Discover life-enhancing independent living services at Trio Orem. Joy isn't just for the young, it's for the young at heart. Trio signature programs provide a unique approach to wellness, bringing living well and well-being to life. Trio is reimagining retirement to deliver delight in every detail. To learn more, contact Trio Orem at 801-434-8000 or visit treeorem.com.
Traffic and weather together, again brought to you by Granite Credit Union, helping members since 1935. I hope that the roads are in as beautiful a shape as that weather out there.
Yeah, well, they're not looking too bad at all. We did have an accident. It was westbound on 146 South approaching I-15, but they cleared that off to the right shoulder now, so you shouldn't have to worry about that in traffic. It is a little slow still southbound on 89 as you approach Oak Hills Drive. That's due to construction in that area, but that's pretty much the only slowdowns and accidents we've got going on. I-15 the rest of the way is looking really good, and no problems on the belt route or in any of your canyons at this point. Upgrade your countertops with beautiful quartz or granite. With Bedrock Quartz, it's only 7 days from template to installation. With showrooms in Layton, West Jordan, St. George, and Pleasant Grove, bedrockquartz.com. I'm Jason Jones in the KSL Traffic Center.
This week should be warm with highs in the 80s today and tomorrow. Clouds are going to linger, bringing chances of rain the rest of the week, but it will remain warm. Highs are going to settle into the 70s Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then sneak back into the 80s, it looks like, on Sunday. We're at 70 degrees with partly cloudy skies now in Salt Lake City at 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. This is Utah's all-day companion for news.
The U.S. debt ceiling. In-depth coverage on KSL News Radio.
99 pages. That's what it took to hash out a debt limit agreement between House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and President Joe Biden. Broke on Saturday that they'd reached a deal. One thing that ended up unnegotiated was President Biden's $500 billion student loan forgiveness program. I was surprised by that.
Yeah. First of all, I loathe the student loan forgiveness program. Your loan, you pay. Very simple. That is how it works out in my brain. Nobody's sweeping in to pay off my credit card debt because that is my loan. That is my debt to pay back. I feel the same way about the loan forgiveness. Interesting that that was not negotiated at all, though, in this latest bill, because that was certainly on the table. In fact, when the Republicans passed in the House their bill, their version of the bill, it clawed back that program completely.
If you're just joining us, you're like, whoa. Okay, wait a minute. The economy in America is just not going to completely implode this week? Maybe not. Still needs a vote with the House and the Senate. We expect that to happen in the next day or two. But yeah, both sides came to an agreement. There was that big number, just a real quick refresher. That big number, which was the debt ceiling, Republicans wanted $1.5 trillion as the limit. What they got was $4 trillion. So we chalked that up a few minutes ago to a big Republican loss. And also there were those work requirements. We're going to talk more about those in about 10 minutes. Republicans wanted stronger work requirements for things like food stamps, where people would have to work 20 hours a week up to age 64. It's now 49 years old. What they got was age 54. And we have both senators weighing in on this from Utah. Utah Senator Mitt Romney saying the deal is good for the country. I'm hopeful it will pass. Senator Mike Lee saying he 100% agrees with Representative Chip Roy of Texas on this one.
We're just barreling towards an infinite amount of debt, and we've got to stop that. My constituents at home do not want that, so I'm going to be making that loud and clear to my Republican colleagues that this is not a deal that we should be taking.
Remember, it was Mike Lee that rallied together 43 Republican senators that sent a letter to Joe Biden saying, if you don't have massive spending cuts, we're not supporting that bill.
We cannot get through it as a country unless we stop spending in a way that gives drunken sailors a bad name.
Now, to be clear, when Mitt Romney said this deal is good for the country, he's not saying the deal is a good deal. It's avoiding the catastrophe of a default that is good for the country.
KSL legal analyst Greg Skordas, good morning.
Good morning, you guys.
Thought we would get our legal eagle on the line with us this morning regarding that student debt forgiveness program being off the table, because that is also the very same program that sits before the Supreme Court of the United States. And I think Dave and I were both on the same page with this, wondering if perhaps that is why this did not come up in negotiations, or at least didn't come out on the other end of the negotiations.
You're exactly right. That matter is currently tied up in the Supreme Court. And in fact, there is an agreement that if the court hasn't weighed in by the end of August, the stay, that is the temporary forgiveness of student debt payment, is lifted. And students who borrowed money at the end of August of this year will have to start paying that money back, waiting now for the Supreme Court to make its decision. So I think that the reason that the Congress and the president didn't include that into their plan for the debt ceiling issue is because it's already it's already going to be resolved one way or the other. And I think Congress probably feels strongly, Debbie, the way Dave does, that the student loan program is probably not going to fly, probably not going to pass a constitutional muster, and they're comfortable that it's going to be set aside anyway. So there was really no reason to include it in this package.
So you're reminding us that the student loan forgiveness, the case was taken before the Supreme Court. They heard arguments. Was there a sense of how well it went?
There was a sense that it did not go well for the Biden administration. And there was a sense that they loathed the program like you do, Dave. So, but for different reasons, partly because they felt, it seems from the argument, that they felt that the Biden administration just didn't have the authority to do that, that it was beyond something that the administration should have done, and that it was something Congress should have done. That just to forgive that, it was such a massive step without congressional approval, and it's just not the type of thing that people felt the administration had the right to do. Now, certainly with COVID and whatnot, there were exceptions, but we're past that now.
Yeah. Because that's what was the argument, right? That was the justification that President Biden used, that it was a loose connection to COVID, if I remember correctly.
Right, and just the fact that we wanted to get these kids back on their feet, have this burden lifted off of them, even though the three of us all paid our debt back, like you say, and we're like, hey, what about us? That's how the country felt. And people who didn't borrow were like, well, wait a minute, why should people be forgiven? So it wasn't a popular decision, except among the millions of borrowers, of course, but it wasn't something that people felt the administration had the right to do anyway.
Well, I always felt all along, Greg, that he was doing this to sort of answer a campaign promise that he'd made along the trail, to make college at some level free. But obviously, it has turned into a debacle now that is in front of the Supreme Court of the United States. Greg Skordas, KSL legal analyst, is a defense attorney, also has been a prosecutor in the past, understands both sides of the law very well. Thank you so much for calling in, Greg. And I want to note that people who do have loans, the U.S. Department of Education has already told borrowers, Dave, that end of August, you'll have to start repaying, depending on what the Supreme Court does.
And they've had interest-free loans on their student loans for years now. It started right out of the gate early, March 2020, when they first suspended that. President Trump suspended it, and then it kept getting extended and extended and extended. And that has essentially been an interest-free loan for years for students.
Up to $20,000 that would have been forgiven if President Biden had gotten his way immediately, and if the judicial process hadn't gotten in the way. $10,000 for a lot of borrowers, but if you qualified for Pell Grants when you were going to college, it was $20,000. And there's millions. It's 43 million borrowers, according to the Associated Press.
And that's the key right there. You said you heard Greg say it was a very unpopular program. Well, yeah, except for the 43 million people that still had student loans. Now, the key here was, this was a very select group of student loans. This didn't have anything to do with folks that had already paid off student loans. It has nothing to do with our kids that are currently going to college and getting student loans. It was just this moment of time, student loans, and there was millions, tens of millions of Americans that had this, that it would affect.
Dave and I talking about the debt ceiling debate? No, it is now an agreement. It was a debate last week. It was a debacle the week before. Today we have an agreement. We're going to actually look at the work requirements a little more in depth right now for food stamps. We're going to get somebody from Workforce Services who administers the food stamp program. It's actually called the SNAP program, to talk about how these new work requirements that are in this legislation will impact Utahns. And also, Utahns Against Hunger will be calling in as well to tell us how they see this affecting families.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Dave and Dujanovic are asking the tough questions.
Telling you more about stories that were breaking earlier this morning.
Hi, this is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
Join us weekdays 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Text us here in the studio about the weather in your area. The Cyprus Credit Union KSL text line is 57500.
Imagine getting ahead of your irritable bowel syndrome with constipation or IBS-C by treating it with Linzess. Then you could start proactively managing your constipation with belly pain and get ahead of your symptoms. Talk to your doctor about Linzess, linaclotide. Linzess is a prescription medicine that treats IBS-C in adults. It's not a laxative. It's a once-daily pill that helps you get ahead of your symptoms. It's proven to help you have more frequent and complete bowel movements and helps relieve overall abdominal symptoms, belly pain, discomfort, and bloating. These symptoms were studied in combination, not individually.
Do not give Linzess to children less than 2. It may harm them. Do not take Linzess if you have a bowel blockage. Get immediate help if you develop unusual or severe stomach pain, especially with bloody or black stools. The most common side effect is diarrhea, sometimes severe. If it's severe, stop taking Linzess and call your doctor right away. Other side effects include gas, stomach area pain, and swelling.
Imagine, what could relief from IBS-C mean for you? Talk to your doctor and say yes to Linzess. Learn more at linzess.com or call 1-800-LINZESS.
Everything's changing so fast these days, and that's a great thing. Back in my day, we were lucky if we could get one video to load on a desktop computer, but now there's the Xfinity 10G network. That means the fastest internet with faster speeds rolling out every day, and internet that can power a house full of devices with ultra-low lag. So while one person streams a movie from their room, another can play video games in the basement, while another TikToks in the kitchen. It's the next generation 10G network only from Xfinity. The future starts now. Through July 21st, new customers can get started with gig internet on the Xfinity 10G network. Plus, get XFi Complete with unlimited data and Wi-Fi equipment included for just $30 a month for 2 years with no annual contract when you add Xfinity Mobile with unlimited data. Go to xfinity.com/10G, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today. Requires paperless billing and auto pay with stored bank account. Restrictions apply. Taxes and fees extra. Xfinity Mobile requires Xfinity Internet. After promo, regular rates apply to internet service and devices. Gig Wi-Fi requires gig internet and XFi Gateway. Actual speeds vary.
If you're in need of a tooth replacement, it's important to understand all your options. Grandpa's Dental combines experience and the latest in dental technology to bring you the information you need when choosing dental treatment options for you and your family. At Grandpa's Dental, they know great results can be achieved when treatment is tailored to each individual's needs. Grandpa's Dental mission is to provide only the highest quality and personalized dental care at an affordable price, and they've been in town for over 15 years. At Grandpa's Dental, you can expect a friendly, knowledgeable staff, experienced professionals, and a comfortable and pleasant environment for you and your family's dental needs. So, if you need an implant, crown, or denture, get to know all your options. Call one of Grandpa's Dental offices today in Orem, Murray, or West Jordan, or go to grandpasdental.com to schedule a free consultation today. grandpasdental.com. That's grandpasdental.com.
Hello?
Hi, I'm
Mr. Sparky.
What gave it away? The fancy tool belt? How about the big red truck?
Actually,
Yes?
you're on time.
That's our motto. We're on time. You'll see, or the repair is free.
You rhymed. That's cute. Are you always available?
24/7.
24/7.
Oh, I don't sleep much. So what seems to be the problem?
Well, my toddler plugged the dog into the light socket.
Yeah, I see your house is blinking like a pinball machine.
Can you fix it?
The house or the dog?
The house.
Oh, I'm Mr. Sparky. If it's electrical, I
You
can
can
fix
fix it.
You betcha.
From a small electrical problem to new lights to smart home services, generators to whole house surge protection, and everything electrical in between. Call America's on-time electrician. Mr. Sparky is fully licensed to install or repair any electrical work. Just call 888-8-SPARKY.
Hold on, this is where we bring in the singers.
You don't have to put up with any malarkey. Call 888-8-SPARKY.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Tim Hughes. First, rattlesnakes are out later than normal this year thanks to the record-breaking snowpack. Second, this summer is going to be hot, but the long-range forecast from the KSL Weather Center says we shouldn't be setting as many heat records as we did last summer. And third, disgraced tech mogul Elizabeth Holmes is scheduled to turn herself into prison today to begin her sentence for defrauding investors out of millions with her Theranos company. We're going to look for a high today of 83 degrees, and we are well on our way now. It is 70 in Salt Lake City. Now back to David Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
The U.S. debt ceiling. In-depth coverage on KSL News Radio.
As part of the agreement between President Biden and House Speaker McCarthy, there will be new work requirements if both the House and Senate approve this agreement for people who are, for example, on food stamps. It's called SNAP. So the age requirement, if it changes, if this bill goes through, Dave, would bump up from 49 to 54 for work requirements. So if you're up to age 54, you would have to show proof of work 20 hours a week or some sort of training program that's approved. Republicans wanted it to be 64, but it looks like they've agreed to settle at 54 years old.
Remember, work requirements were a Bill Clinton thing. Back in 1996, it was called the Welfare to Work Bill, something along those lines. But they transformed the welfare program and included this work requirement. And this is where a lot of Republicans jumped on board with the new welfare program. They said if there's a work requirement, there's a lot of support, a lot of bipartisan support now. And this would be tweaking it a little bit.
And this would be for able-bodied adults without children. That's my read of it at this point.
Yeah, pretty narrow scope.
Maurice Persis, Assistant Director of Eligibility at Workforce Services, we understood from our producer, he said this is in your wheelhouse. You can give us these details on how this could potentially impact Utah families if the work requirement expands to age 54.
That is correct, yes.
So give us the lay of the land, if you can, in the next couple of minutes.
Sure, and I think you've covered it pretty well. Let me just add some additional detail. So on the SNAP program, formerly known as food stamps, there are specific work requirements that folks have to comply to. Those are called employment and training. In addition to employment and training, there's something called ABOD work requirements, which is able-bodied adults without dependents. Those are folks that are age 18 to age 49 that currently have to meet additional work requirements. Otherwise, they lose eligibility after 3 months of being on SNAP. Like you said, the age limit would actually be changing to include folks who are through age 54. So the requirement would actually change from age 18 to age 54.
Okay, can you explain why the number 49 or 54? The rest of us will typically work until retirement around 65. Why was this included, or was there any justification why they chose 49 years old?
I cannot speculate how the policy was made. We've had this policy for years, actually, I believe, and you mentioned it since we've made those changes, I believe, back in '96. But that was the time frame set at the point to include folks through the age 49. And like you said, and that requirement is changing to age 55.
As the Assistant Director of Eligibility for Workforce Services for programs like SNAP, for food stamps, if this does get extended to age 54, does the state potentially foresee people becoming ineligible for these benefits?
Yes, I'm not going to speculate what the intent of this was, but the end result will be a reduction in folks that are eligible to remain covered. Usually what we see of folks that are under or required to participate in ABOD, their average time on SNAP is roughly about that 3 months. I believe what we'll see is the change that those that are now through age 55 will kind of fall under that same occurrence and will most likely end up losing eligibility unless they're participating 80 hours a month in one of those activities that you've already covered.
Thank you for giving us that information that obviously, Debbie, if this were to pass, it would affect Utahns. Maurice Persis, thank you for joining us, Assistant Director of Eligibility at Workforce Services, who deals directly with this.
With this, yeah. Let's switch the phone lines to Gina Cornea with Utahns Against Hunger. Gina, I can only imagine what you're going to say regarding the expansion of the age qualifications for these benefits up to 54 and the work requirements. I'm going to guess you're not on board with it, but you give us your take.
Yeah, so thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. And of course, we are deeply disappointed that the Biden administration agreed to expand the age limit for work requirements. And, you know, it's not as straightforward as just getting a job. Most adults who can work do work. I mean, and research bears that out. What also research bears out is that work requirements don't increase employment. It just takes benefits away from people who have a lot of barriers to employment, or they, you know, folks who with disabilities are exempt, but they have to have an official disability receiving a disability payment. So maybe it's folks who are waiting for a disability determination. Maybe it's a grandparent taking care of grandchildren. I mean, we all know how expensive childcare is, and if you're in a low-wage job, you often depend on family to help take care of your kids. And it also increases the administrative burden on workforce services, for example. Now they're going to have a whole new age group that's going to have to demonstrate that they are meeting the work requirement, which, you know, unfortunately, paperwork still gets lost in this digital age. And we are very concerned that it's not going to increase the employment of folks, but it's just going to increase food insecurity.
As you described that, I thought you painted a very clear picture of folks that may not have barriers to working. And you touched on perhaps it's grandparents that have to stay home and help take care of children. What are some other areas that we may not be thinking of?
Well, you know, I think really going back to the disability issue, a lot of folks who, you know, have worked their whole lives may have a physical barrier. They may have mental health barriers, and there are exemptions for folks to, you know, from those work requirements. But they have to know, and you have to depend on eligibility workers who are going to ask the right questions and who are going to have a process in place to address those needs. And there are folks, too, who need support in finding work. And there isn't any money, as far as I know, to increase case management, for example. If you need somebody who needs some hand-holding, who needs some extra help, maybe they need dental work, maybe they need glasses. I mean, there are all sorts of issues that prevent people from working, and it's not a lack of desire. And maybe they get a job, but they get let go. Maybe they're working part-time, but the hours fluctuate in a way that doesn't give them enough hours. And so then on top of that, they have to stay on top of the paperwork to get to DWS to keep their food stamp case open.
Gina Cornea, thank you for joining us from Utah's Against Hunger.
Again, that work requirement would bump up the age for, it would require people to work, up to age 54, 20 hours a week. And right now, the age is 49 years old to qualify for food stamps. Next, Target reacting to backlash, pulling some of its Pride merchandise, saying store employees have been enduring threats. I thought this is the store everybody loved. But in the last few days, according to many, many news articles, this store has lost billions of dollars in value. Next.
KSL FM Midvale, KSL Salt Lake City. Listen on the KSL News Radio app and in your car at 102.7 FM. KSL News Radio, Utah's all-day companion for news.
It's 10 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. This summer looking to be a bit cooler than last summer, but then again, last year Salt Lake City shattered some heat records.
We're not going to have a summer like 2022. That is such an anomaly that to repeat that twice, it's unheard of. So the good news is 2023 won't be as hot in the sense of 100-degree days.
KSL meteorologist Kevin Eubank says the latter half of the summer will likely be cooler than last year because the El Nino pattern that's setting in will bring monsoonal moisture earlier in the season. Salt Lake City employees could get some of their travel costs reimbursed for out-of-state abortions if a proposed lifestyle savings account passes the city council. Employees can pull up to $500 to cover a wide range of expenses, including student loans, gym memberships, and travel for medical care. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The apartment building in Davenport, Iowa that partially collapsed on Sunday afternoon set to be demolished today over protests from people who say 2 residents are still unaccounted for. One of those is Johnny Wood's nephew, Brandon. Johnny tells ABC News what the city is doing is unconscionable.
If that was a luxury apartment building, what would have happened? Every person would have been gotten out of it.
The city said yesterday that there were no unaccounted for people. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down on the day, 121 points. The NASDAQ is up 77. And our KSL weather, just a beautiful sunny spring day ahead. That's next. KSL News Time, 10:01.
We have enough people running around Broadcast House at 4 in the morning to field a football team.
Producers, reporters, the traffic team, and us.
This is Tim and Amanda.
Join us each morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
For adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy, now there's Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months, and Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Nothing and me go hand in hand. Nothing on my skin, that's my new plan. Nothing is every day.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms, such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
With Skyrizi, you could achieve 90% clearer skin. Ask your doctor about the #1 dermatologist prescribed biologic in psoriasis and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
I am a soul line dance instructor.
This is Rhonda.
I just love dancing, so I was always willing to dance through the pain, but it was really starting to catch up with me. I've had foot pain, leg pain, everything pain.
And this is Rhonda's Good Feet story.
I was using any and everything that I could to help alleviate the pain.
None of that worked. Until
since visiting the Good Feet store and incorporating the arch supports into my life, I definitely have not felt the pain. I can't even really verbalize just how much better I feel. My mood and my energy has just drastically improved. I'm still actually in awe. Wearing the arch supports and being pain-free now, I am able to dance longer. Dancing is just a joy.
Now that is one heck of a Good Feet story.
I do want to tell everyone about it.
And now you have.
So, yeah.
See how we can help you with a free arch support fitting at the Good Feet store.
Stop by the Good Feet store in Farmington, Riverton, or Sandy for a free fitting. Call 1-800-NEW-FEET or visit mygoodfeet.com.
Any Hour Services can help unclog any drain in your house. Whether you have a backup, a clog, or a slow drain you want fixed, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union, helping members since 1935. Here's Jason Jones.
And we have reports of an accident northbound I-15, about 2700 south. Can't find it on the cameras, and it's supposed to be off to the left shoulder anyway, so it shouldn't really affect your commute at all. In fact, the only delays that we're seeing are southbound on 89 as you roll through that construction zone around Oak Hills Drive. It's just fairly slow through that stretch, as it kind of usually is with the construction. Otherwise, the belt route's looking really good. Your canyons are looking good, and no problems if you're headed in or out of Tooele. Box Elder County is for the birds. The spring migration is in full swing at Bear River Migratory Bird Refuge. Find out more at visitboxeldercounty.com. I'm Jason Jones in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather mostly sunny today and tomorrow, but with a chance of afternoon thunderstorms tomorrow and through the rest of the week. Highs will drop into the 70s toward the weekend. Right now, 71 degrees, partly cloudy at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. This is Utah's all-day companion for news.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Let's talk about Target. I've always felt like Target is that store that everyone loves to shop. It has fallen out of favor with many loud voices over their Pride line. The store, according to news reports, has lost billions of dollars in value because of this backlash. Largely conservative voices, and that they have raised a firestorm over what Target has decided to carry. And there's something like 2,000 different items. They're not pulling all of the items, but Target has caved in a way and decided to pull some of these items, and I'll tell you why in just a moment.
Yeah, Target, Bud Light, Disney, examples of folks that have dipped their toes into the social discussion, right? What is going on? There are companies that the entire world, certainly the United States uses on a daily basis, right? But they've become involved in some political discussions, and they have taken an absolute bath when it comes to the value of their companies. It is a financial setback, no question. Target's children's section, I think, is really where the conversation is, and that's what happened. We've seen pride flags and clothing for decades now. This is not new. Here's a video that I saw on TikTok of a woman that was walking around Target and was going into the kids section looking at the controversial clothing that was being offered.
Okay, this is the child section. This is literally the kids section. We have Glad You Came Out and I'm So Happy That You're Queer in the kids section. Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, but pride and toddler don't belong in the same sentence. So I found an extra small swimsuit in the child section. It says light binding effect on it. And then the bottoms in the kids section, keep in mind, say tuck friendly construction.
Now, those two things, the binding and the tucking, and I'm not going to describe what it is. Either you know what it is or you can Google it yourself. It's not easily described here on the radio, but those are the items that are really the most controversial. It's not the pride flags. It's not a T-shirt. It's these things found in the kids section.
Pride Month is June, which is a celebration of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender people. We'll have a pride parade in downtown Salt Lake. I've seen pride flags flying proudly all over my neighborhood.
All year round.
Target sales of pride clothing is nothing new. I didn't realize until I read this Reuters report that they've been selling pride clothing for a decade. In fact, our producer said, well, we went to look for pride clothing last year. We ran to Target and sold out.
It was out, yeah.
So they had to go to another store to find it. So this is, Target has carried pride clothing for years and years. But according to this Reuters article, in fact, they have like 2,000 different products. But here's, I think, what stood out to me in this article, Dave, this is an idea of some of the more controversial items that they're selling, that they've got gender fluid mugs, Queer All Year calendars, and books. And Reuters is reporting 2 to 8 years old for children, titled Bye Bye Binary and Pride 123 and I'm Not a Girl. And Target has stated that is removing some of these items, not all of the items, some of the items, due to threats against employees. That's where this story and this campaign and backlash against Target crosses the line for me.
Oh, yeah. No question.
You
Violence, never the answer. Absolutely. Threats, no way.
Right. And I've even read that people were allegedly throwing some of the articles on, the shoppers were throwing some of these articles on the floor. You really, come on. So I don't ever feel, never is there a circumstance where an employee of a store should feel unsafe to work there. And that's where these types of anti-campaigns, you-fill-in-the-blank campaigns, they draw the line for me. If you have a problem, you speak to the manager, you speak to corporate, but to threaten employees now you're just way out of line. Now, can you choose not to buy their stock? Can you choose to sell their stock? Yeah. And I'm looking at Target right now. Let me refresh this. Target's taken another hit today on their stock. It's down $4.15, down 3%. According to headlines, it has lost billions of dollars in value over the last couple of weeks because of this.
And boycotts are nothing new, and it's not a conservative thing. It's not a liberal thing. Tucker Carlson from Fox News was boycotted often by advertisers for things that he said. There's no question. Anytime you take a stance or you promote something, there is that risk that you are going to alienate certain people. And boycotts, again, these are not new, and that happens all the time.
Kevin O'Leary, does that name sound familiar?
Shark Tank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy on Shark Tank. Here's what he said on, I think it was Fox News. Might have been Fox Business News. Either way, here's what he said about, selling this kind of merchandise or aligning your company, your brand as a company with what he referred to as sort of political issue.
You stay out of it. Read the room. What's your message? What are you selling? Who wants to buy this product? Do not get involved in partisan issues. You cannot win. And that is a lesson for corporate America. And social media has turned everything upside down because it's a giant polling system, except everybody sees the results before you do. That's the problem. And when something goes viral, it can be a good thing, but mostly it's negative. And it's decimated these brands very quickly. Boards of directors, probably half of them don't even have a Twitter account, don't know anything about Facebook, don't use LinkedIn, don't know anything about TikTok. And they should, because it's killing their market caps when they misread it.
It's so difficult, right? Obviously, when you take a stance, you know you're never going to make everybody happy. No matter what you say, Debbie, you and I do a show, an opinion show. People don't always agree with me or you. That is just part of the business. But when you draw certain lines, you will alienate a larger portion, right?
If I'm the owner, I'm okay with that. Because I'm looking at the number of people, the growing number of people who say that, according to Gallup poll, a recent Gallup poll, percentage of U.S. adults who self-identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or something other than heterosexual has increased to 7%, 7.1%, double the percentage of 2012. So at some point, if I'm the owner of a company, I'm recognizing that there is a growing number of people who align with something other than a heterosexual lifestyle. And there's a market out there. And they deserve to be able to walk into stores and feel safe about buying the products that they want to buy. Now, I'm also a mom. And I have had all three kids in tow at a very young age where I felt as though we were standing in front of, for example, a magazine rack with extremely inappropriate photos, unrelated to this circumstance at all. Like big busted women, inappropriate headlines, things that I do not want my 4 or 5-year-old child to see. And I remember there was a time I think I covered up my son's eyes and I didn't have enough hands to cover up all 3 kids' eyeballs. So I understand it as a parent too, that it's rough to have to, on the spot, explain to your child what they're looking at. And you said in the beginning, you didn't want to talk about some of the clothing lines on the air, Dave, because you can look it up. It's a little difficult to talk about on the air. I mean, some of the stuff, I'll say it, like will make people more flat-chested, for example. But we have a growing number of people who are telling the world that they're lesbian, that they're gay, that they're bisexual, that they're transgender. And don't think throwing items of clothing on the floor at a major retailer is solving anything at all. At all. Straight ahead, let's bring, is it the Equality Utah Executive Director of Include? Is this a new organization, Caitlin? A new nonprofit that stands up for people who are transgender, who are gay, who are lesbian. They're joining the conversation in just a few minutes.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Enjoy Jeff Kaplan later today driving home.
You'll have important news updates like you'd expect.
Plus Jeff's trademark Minute of News twice an hour.
Try him today between 3 and 7 on KSL News Radio.
Avoid wet heads.
Cloudburst dropping a ton of rain.
And the bad hair day.
Gusty wind and hail.
Get ready for whatever is headed for your head.
What has happened to your head?
Before you head out, make us a part of your morning routine. Traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the 9s on KSL News Radio.
It doesn't get better than summer camping in Utah, and it doesn't get any bigger than the Utah Summer RV Palooza, presented by Bish's RV. We're bringing the biggest RV show in the region to Layton, June 8th through the 10th, for 3 days only. The Layton Hills Mall is where you'll find a massive selection of top RV brands like Go Play, Ember RV, Forest River, Northwood, and a whole lot more. Get up to 20% below cost on select new 2022 RVs, and get 90 days no payments on approved credit for all play and no pay till September OAC. Summer RV Palooza is where you'll find a brand new 26 BH travel trailer. It's high quality at an undeniable value at a sale price of only $19,995. The selection is huge, and so are the trade-in offers. Get max value for your current RV when you trade in at the show. Shop the Summer RV Palooza now at bishes.com/Utah RV Palooza. 3 days only, June 8th through the 10th at the Layton Hills Mall. Sponsored by Bish's RV.
At Intermountain Primary Children's Hospital, we made a bold promise to build the nation's model health system for children. Join us in realizing our vision for the future of pediatric care. So together, we can expand primary children's impact and ensure every child has access to the right care at the right place at the right time. For a century, Primary Children's has kept the child first and always. Help us continue to do so for the next 100 years. To get involved, visit primarypromise.org.
If you want to lose the weight and really keep it off, we're going to direct you to Soda Weight Loss. This is not an appetite suppressant. This is not some kind of pill that you'll have to take for the rest of your life. This is not a workout routine that requires you to be at the gym for 2 hours, 7 days a week. This is the science of eating smart. They're going to give you the program. I just followed the program. I mean, I didn't do anything spectacular. I just did what they said. And in 3 months, I had lost 34 pounds. Now, a year and a half later, I've kept it off because I have the support of my nutritionist for the rest of my life if I want.
Yeah. How many times have we said it will change the way you look at food? They really teach you how to eat better so you stay nutritionally well along with feeling well. And my daughter lost 42 pounds on this program, feels better about herself, and then, of course, you feel better about everything else in the world, right? Go to sodaweightloss.com and find out more. It's spelled SOTA. Just think Tim and Amanda. And as we always like to say, Soda Weight Loss is state-of-the-art.
Join Doug Wright in the KSL Movie Show this Friday at Fat Cats. That's in Bluffdale. They're broadcasting live from 9 to noon. Fat Cats, Bluffdale, 13... Well, how do I say that? 13901, 13901, South Redwood Road.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, last year we had a crazy hot summer. The outlook for this year is for cooler weather. Second, Salt Lake City employees will be able to use an allowance for medical travel if they need to go out of state to get an abortion. Third, authorities in Davenport, Iowa are ready to tear down an apartment building that collapsed over the weekend over the objections of people who say there are still 2 missing. Right now, 71 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Dave and I talking about Target. I feel like this is the store that everybody loves. Every time I go into this store, the line for self-checkout winds around like you would not believe. But it has certainly fallen out of favor with some loud voices over their Pride line of clothing. The store has lost billions in value on the stock market. And also is pulling some of the items because of the backlash.
Yeah, and I think we heard this from the Shark Tank guy, Kevin O'Leary, who is shocked that these very large companies, whether it's Bud Light, Disney, or in this case, Target, are diving into pretty controversial topics that potentially could alienate a huge portion of their customers.
You stay out of it. Read the room. What's your message? What are you selling? Who wants to buy this product? Do not get involved in partisan issues. You cannot win.
And these partisan issues, right or wrong, we have a hard time having productive conversations. We do. Every time it turns into a fight. That just is what happens. And we're having a hard time figuring out, how do we have this nuanced discussion? How do we have a discussion about Target having swimwear in the kids section that discusses binding and tucking? You know, how do we have this discussion in a positive way without fighting each other tooth and nail and attacking each other and throwing clothes on the ground? Like, that's completely and totally unproductive. So I think that's part of what we're trying to do right now, is figure out, how do we have a productive conversation?
Amanda Darrow, the executive director of Included United. Is this a new organization in Utah, Amanda?
This is a new organization in Utah that's united to build inclusion around coming to the table and building dialogue and inclusion.
Amanda, help us understand the importance of a pride section in a store, and then maybe even more specifically in the kids section.
Absolutely. So, when we really think about what these items signal, it's safety. When we walk into a store and we see rainbows, we see items that, are celebrating our identities, we find a sense of safety in those items. We see, okay, I belong here. I can wear this outfit out. People can celebrate who I am. I can celebrate who I am. And we use those items to show others a way to connect with us, a way to say, hey, I'm a safe person. I'm someone that you can go to if something's wrong, if you're not feeling safe in this environment. And someone who also wants to celebrate you for being you and being able to love your true, authentic self and the person that you love. We really use these items as signals of safety.
Go ahead. Talk more specifically about Dave's question about the kids section. Should there be a line drawn at including some of these items in a kids area of a store, or not?
No, there shouldn't be a line, and here's why. We actually find our true selves, our gender identity, as early as the age of 3 years old. We know who we are. We find ourselves to say, go to our parents at certain stages of our lives and comfortability, some as early as 3 years old and on, and say, I feel like this is who I am. And our parents have to navigate a world where they thought that they were, expecting to have a son when their son thinks, and believes that they are a daughter. And they have to navigate that world. And to have a store that might have sections of clothing or items that make that navigation just a little bit easier. And then when we start talking about, maybe baby onesies, I want everyone to remember that our community has children too. We have babies. And our babies, when we want to celebrate our families, we often will put them in a onesies with a rainbow and celebrating us because they're our families. They're our kids. We're not saying that we're turning that baby part of the community. We're saying they're celebrating us as parents.
When you say children know as early as 3, I've had 4 kids. I'm not sure they knew much at 3 years old. But when I look at some of the clothing that's offered, binding and tucking clothing, swimming suits, stuff like that, I mean, we are asking kids, I don't know, to make decisions or to know things that maybe they're probably too young to know in many cases.
Yeah, and when you're talking about the tucking swimsuits and the binding chest binders, those items were marketed for adults. Those were not in the kids section, and that was a misconception that was going on in the Target stores. We don't have chests to bind until we are older. I want to be very happy to say that if a child wants to conceal their genitalia in any way during a swimsuit, we should be happy for that. Our genitalia should be covered up as much as possible in public spaces while swimming. So if we're thinking that we're just out there to say, here, this is the decision you have to make, I can promise you, with working with so many kids throughout this state of Utah and young children and families, that we're not telling the kids what they want. The kids are telling us what we want, what they want. They're telling us what we should do to help them. We're not saying you need a tuck. We're saying, what do you feel comfortable? What do you need? And they will tell us that they oftentimes want to cover up their genitalia. And again, that's a very good thing to have kids wanting to stay, covered up.
Amanda Darrow, Executive Director of Included United, thank you for joining us today to talk about this issue regarding Target and the loss of billions of dollars in value on the stock market. People apparently selling off, it looks like, their stock because of this controversy that has erupted over the last week and a half, 2 weeks or so. And it has to do with some of the items that they're selling at Target, or were selling at Target, the Pride-related items. And they pulled some of those items. They said that it escalated to the point where some of their associates were getting threatened, and just this sounds like out of an abundance of caution for the safety of their employees, Target decided to pull some of those items off the shelves.
They could say it's for safety. It could just be reacting to the massive backlash. Either way, they've removed a lot of these items, apparently.
How do you deal with this as a dad? I told you how I felt when I was a mom. There was items in all stores, right? I mean, most stores that you can walk across, you can come across with your children and be like, oh my goodness, I'm not ready to have this conversation yet, and I won't be for several years. But what's the dad viewpoint on that?
I've seen Pride sections as long as I can remember, for decades now. So I've never had a problem with that. Anytime you start including kids into the conversation, I think that's where the antenna goes up a little bit. We just need to make sure that everything is appropriate, right? There are lingerie sections in stores all the time, but they're not in the kids section, right? Because there's an appropriate separation. There's some distance between something that
but you have to walk by the lingerie section in some of these stores, or walk through it to get to the kids section. I mean,
but they're not
it's right
in the
there.
kids section, though. But you're still
going to have that conversation with your child if you're walking by a lingerie section where something is skimpy that you don't, you may think is not appropriate for them to see at that age. Or do you just ignore it and keep walking?
No, there's certain areas where we just assume that everything is appropriate. When I take our kids to the store or a G-rated movie, the assumption is I'm not going to have that discussion. So it's a safe place for me to go if I don't want to have that discussion. If it's right there in front of you, then you're forced into having the discussion. If they're looking through clothes and they're asking me, hey, what does this mean? Well, then I have to address it.
What we haven't talked about is that not all couples are like you and I, right? I mean, there are a lot of gay people in our community who have kids, and if they want to go buy their child a rainbow onesie,
no problem with that
in the child section. Yeah. That's going to be different than some of the other things that we've discussed.
Yeah, there are controversial items and there are non-controversial items. And obviously there are some controversial items that are out there. It's not the rainbow. It's not a lot of this. I mean, of course, some people are going to have a problem no matter what. But I think it's the controversial items that have really caused the backlash.
It's 10:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. The next 2 weeks will be critical in whether Salt Lake County sees any more flooding this spring. Hydrologic consultant Brian McInerney tells KSL-TV Big and Little Cottonwood Creeks could spill over if we get heavy rain or heat over the next 10 days or so. But McInerney says we should be in the clear if the weather is favorable after that. He says Immigration and Red Butte Creeks are no longer at risk for major flooding. Been 40 years since floodwaters were flowing down State Street in Salt Lake City. KSL-TV's Shelby Lofton reports historian Bo James Burgess has collected some interesting artifacts from that flood.
It's the Salt Lake Tribune, Spirit of Survival.
A familiar item made into an accessory.
These are sandbag keychains. It says the flood of '83.
Evidence and accounts of what happened that we learned from decades later. Patrick Thomas lived through the floods of '83.
If I remember correctly, it went all the way to the ballpark.
And walked through the waters.
And one artifact Burgess has from the '83 flood, a small bottle of water taken from the State Street River. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Getting the agreement on raising the debt ceiling through Congress is not a given. There's opposition from some conservative Republicans as well as liberal Democrats. ABC's Jay O'Brien says President Biden and Speaker McCarthy are lobbying now to get the deal through.
The focus here is on moderates, particularly moderate Democrats, whose votes will have to offset any Republicans that go against this deal and vote against it on Wednesday.
Lawmakers have until June 5th to get a bill approved, or else the U.S. could default on its loan obligations. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down 126 points so far today. The NASDAQ down about 56. And our KSL weather looking like a sunny, beautiful spring day. That's next. KSL News Time, 10:32.
Start your days with knowledgeable, friendly voices telling you about the latest news and weather out there.
Hi, this is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
In the business of waking you up each morning from 5 to 9.
On KSL News Radio.
When it's hot outside, I love cold drinks. I love them. I love my slushies, the icy Slurpees, all that stuff. But let me tell you about my personal favorite. I go to Maverick. That's my spot. I'm driving into work. I always pass this Maverick. And they have this huge line of Frazzle frozen drinks. If I'm not drinking a full-on Frazzle, I'll even use a little flavor shot of Frazzle in my Diet Mountain Dew. I love it. Well, how about this? Free Frazzle Fridays. Every Friday this upcoming month in June, free Frazzle Fridays. That's what they're doing. Kicking off the summer of 2023, starting on this Friday, June 2nd, through June 30th at participating locations. I told you I like to go to my Maverick, Fast Gas, Top Stop, Speedy Mart. There's so many places where you can get this free Frazzle Friday. My personal favorite, Tiger's Blood. I love the Tiger's Blood. Simply Mango is a great flavor as well. So check it out. Free Frazzle Friday starts this Friday. Get that Frazzle. It's a 12-ouncer. You'll love it. It's refreshing. It's fun. I also like the Pina Colada. I forgot about that one. That one's great. It's got caffeine in it. Sugar and caffeine keep you awake forever. Free Frazzle Friday. Check it out.
Hi friends, Dan the Laptop Man here from PC Laptops. I get a lot of emails from people all the time. Here's one. Dear Dan, I hear your talk about a lifetime service guarantee. Free? Really? Please help me avoid all your fine print and be honest about what free means. You understand that we should be very wary of a free offer. Signed, Skeptical. Hi, Skeptical. I remember 22 years ago when we started PC Laptops and our lifetime service guarantee, people thought it was too good to be true. Well, after a decade, people started believing me a little bit. But it's been 22 years of having the privilege to serve our friends and neighbors like you. Our lifetime service guarantee has become the most trusted warranty in the industry. You can get a brand new PC Laptops desktop computer, and they start at only $29 a month. Check us out at PCLaptops.com. That's PCLaptops.com. Here's to seeing you soon, Skeptical.
Oh, ouch! Oh, my back is killing me. Is this you when you get in and out of your truck bed as you work from your truck or van? Reaching up for tools, equipment, materials, ladders, and heavier items? There is a better way. a safer way. And Jordan Camper at 7000 South State in Midvale has the solutions, such as drop-down ladder racks that lower ladders to the side of your vehicle for safe and easy loading and unloading to prevent back injuries and keep your business efficient. Instead of climbing up or on your knees to get stuff out of your truck bed, we feature slide-out truck beds that come to you. At Jordan Camper, we carry lots of step-up bars, easier to get into higher vehicles, and rear door steps for vans. Family-owned and operated for 5 generations, Jordan Camper is Utah's longest-operated truck top and accessory shop. We have a great showroom. Come into 7000 South State in Midvale and check us out. JordanCamper.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union, helping members since 1935. Here's Jason Jones.
And, well, now it's looking great out there on the roads. North and southbound I-15, no trouble at all as you travel between Payson and Ogden. You're going to be regular speeds the entire way. No accidents out there right now either. Those have all been cleared up. The belt route's looking fantastic. No problems on I-80 in and out of Tooele. No problems going up to Park City either, although the only slowdown that we see continues to be southbound on 89 as you approach Oak Hills Drive. That's due to the construction zone in that area. The Utah Symphony's Deer Valley Music Festival in Park City features Ben Folds, Leanne Rimes, the Beach Boys, and more, June 30th through August 4th in Park City at deervalleymusicfestival.org. I'm Jason Jones in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather mostly sunny today and tomorrow, but with a chance of afternoon thunderstorms tomorrow and through the rest of the week. Our highs will drop into the 70s toward the weekend. Right now, we're looking at 74 degrees and mostly sunny skies at KSL News Radio 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. This is Utah's all-day companion for news.
Dave and Dujanovic.
This was a wow moment for me when I saw this headline, Dave. You pitched this story that State Farm, major insurance provider, will stop offering new home insurance policies in California due to growing catastrophe exposure. What they mean is things are burning down there.
Yeah, and it's not just California. My mind immediately goes to, okay, what other places in America is there danger? Well, I think about Florida.
Yeah, they've been struggling there with homeowners insurance as well.
Yeah, Hurricane Ian came in. There was $112 billion worth of damage. More than 5,000 homes completely destroyed. 52,000 structures that were damaged. And I couldn't help but think, how in the world do those insurance companies stay afloat? Because no one can absorb no company can absorb $112 billion of damage in one storm.
Don't they just raise premiums?
Yeah, you could raise them forever and still not pay for that.
Well, also, is this not what insurance companies do? We pay them a lot of money. We even pay them a deductible before we collect any money from our claims. So you pay them, and in fact, I'm looking at the average annual premium, and this is just for a $250,000 house. Let me look for Utah here. Somewhere we're on the list. We're down toward the bottom in terms of how much per year it costs, about $700 a year. So you have a little more, obviously a more expensive home than $250,000 in coverage. You're going to need more than that, or you're going to be upside down in your insurance coverage. But maybe $100 a month. So you just raise premiums, right? I mean, this is what you have to do, because I was under the impression that to qualify for a mortgage, so you go in and you do underwriting and you get, you qualify for $600,000 in mortgage, that your mortgage insurer or your mortgage company is going to want to see that that home is insured in case it flips over the side of a cliff, or hopefully not, but some sort of fire starts up down the street.
Jonathan Pike joins us right now, Utah Insurance Commissioner. Jonathan, what do you make of this? State Farm pulling out of California, at least to new home insurance policies.
Well, thanks, Dave and Debbie, for having me on and for asking me that. I saw the news as you did, and as many others, and it's on the one hand, it's kind of it's a little disconcerting. On the other hand, I'm not terribly surprised, right, because of what you just said and what we all know. So many wildfires in California. And while I think they've taken some steps to improve the situation there in California, some of it is it's hard. They're talking about mitigating some of those dangers, and so I guess what to be learned from that, I think we should try as much as we can in Utah to get ahead of that in the areas where we maybe can do some things, and some of those aren't really insurance related. But they certainly result in, hopefully, insurers being willing and able to continue in a market. Like I say, mitigation efforts, buffer zones, in terms of, combustible, materials. And that's difficult because, let's say you have a home and you want to have a home or a cabin, but more and more, even just, primary homes in a wooded area. That could be considered, as I think we could all agree, high wildfire risk if it's, let's just say it's in a mountainous area with lots of trees. That could be problematic, right? So I get it. I understand where State Farm's coming from. And I think, Utah, we haven't had those kinds of, huge events. We have had wildfires, as you know, lots of them. And so I think we should, learn from California, Colorado, Montana. All these in the last couple of years have had some significant wildfire damage. And so I think the legislature here in Utah has already started looking at this. They've looked at several different things and are working with the Natural Resources Committee on that. But so far, we haven't had that kind of an announcement in Utah from a major insurer.
John Pike is Utah's insurance commissioner. We asked him to call today because State Farm, major insurance provider, has told California residents that if you're buying a new home, they're out. They will no longer insure new home purchases. And so I would imagine, though, that some people, John, who do have homes in maybe more heavily wooded areas or at the base of canyons, are they having a hard time getting insurance in Utah, even though insurance companies haven't officially pulled out, so to speak, like State Farm did with California?
There have been some examples that I have heard of recently, Debbie, that at least I can think of one carrier for sure, but I've been told by insurance agents who we license through our department, as well as the insurance companies. I've been told by several that there are some examples of companies who are either raising the premiums. I think you mentioned that, Dave, or both of you. Or in one case I'm aware of, one company, I won't name at this point, who is not going to renew homeowners policies if they are in what is determined to be a high wildfire risk area. I'm aware of that company. And
here in Utah?
And in Utah. And what they're using, Dave and Debbie, is they're using maps that have been developed kind of by the industry and through fire prevention associations and so forth that have said these could be areas that could be high risk, and they're what you just described.
Wow.
Either mountainous areas or very, near or in a canyon, whatever. And in fact, almost a year ago, we started hearing about this, and we met with what's called the Property and Casualty Association here in Utah, Property and Casualty Insurance Association. And I had a number of insurers say to me, yeah, it's not a problem, but it is something that, each company is free to basically, they've got to do what's best for them. We exist as the Utah Insurance Department to protect the financial security of people and businesses in Utah. That's our mission. So they do have some regulations, obviously, they have to meet, but they can and really should make financial, decisions based on their own interests. And what I'm saying by that is, in the meeting we had with a number of these insurers, several of them said, we're not going to seek to have a huge market share in any one particular place because it just exposes us to too much risk in the event of a catastrophe, right? And that makes sense to me. But
John, let me just get one. We got about 15 seconds, but don't mortgage companies? No, you're fine. Thank you. Don't mortgage companies require you to carry insurance?
Yes.
Okay.
And so that's where it can get tricky, right?
Yeah.
You've got to have homeowners insurance to qualify for a mortgage, or if your insurance company dumps you mid-mortgage, this is a dilemma, John.
It is, and that's why, again, I think it's important that we do what we can, and this really is where it gets involved with local governments, and in terms of land use and where we're building and how we're building, and does it work? Can we mitigate the risk a little bit? So I hope to be part of those discussions. We have been so far, so that we can not have the same kinds of things happen in Utah that have happened in some of our surrounding states.
John Pike, thank you for joining us, Utah Insurance Commissioner.
Yeah, and thanks for giving us a heads up, a Utah angle to this developing story out of California, where State Farm has said they're pulling out of California for new home buyers who want to insure their properties. They're going to have to go elsewhere to find that insurance. Well, you just heard from Utah's insurance commissioner. There are some struggles in similar fashion here with at least one company, one insurance provider in Utah, saying they probably won't renew some homeowners that are in what are considered wildfire-prone areas. That is a big development in this story, and we will continue to follow it with our team of reporters and producers today right here on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
As we get back to normal these days, get your morning back to normal.
We're Tim and Amanda, longtime KSL News host.
For news, for updated weather, we invite you back.
Mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
If you love to follow breaking news like we do, register for breaking news alerts by texting the Cyprus Credit Union KSL text line. Text the word news to 57500.
If your water heater's over 10 to 15 years old, congratulations. You've beat the average. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and I love hearing stories of people having water heaters that are really old and they're still doing their job. Unfortunately, most of us won't be that lucky. And when water heaters fail, it's usually in spectacularly inconvenient fashion. Whether it's an unexpected cold shower when we're already running late for work, or worse yet, coming home to a flooded basement, it's never fun. If you'd like to look into replacing your water heater before it fails, Any Hour Services is having a sale for any homeowners listening. Whether you're looking for a new tanked water heater or you want to see what upgrading to a tankless would cost, the plumbers at Any Hour Services can show you what options are available. And right now, you can save $400 on a tanked water heater or $1,200 on a tankless. If you think you might be interested, call Any Hour Services today and schedule your free estimate. 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
I'm Dr. Stork. Eggs are a staple in our diets, and there's only one egg with more delicious farm fresh taste plus superior nutrition. Eggland's Best. With more vitamins, including 6 times more vitamin D and 10 times more vitamin E, plus 25% less saturated fat than ordinary eggs. Available in so many delicious varieties. Classic, cage-free, and organic. Eggland's Best. Better taste, better nutrition, better eggs.
Whether you own a local business or a global one, you're always looking for ways to position your operation to create opportunities and move on them faster. With Bank of America, you get access to experts, award-winning insights, and business solutions so powerful, you'll make every move matter. Locally and globally. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Copyright 2023 Bank of America, N.A.
With our roots in northern Utah, Holy Cross Hospital has a legacy of caring to help every person be whole and healthy. Find us at 5 Holy Cross Hospital locations and more than 45 clinics along the Wasatch Front. Learn more at holycrossutah.org.
At Holy Cross Hospital, we're honored to carry the legacy of our namesake and equally honored to care for northern Utah's vibrant communities. Find us at 5 Holy Cross Hospital locations and more than 45 clinics along the Wasatch Front. Learn more at holycrossutah.org.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, we're moving toward the peak of the runoff season for Big and Little Cottonwood Canyons. Second, the State Street River from 40 years ago being remembered with a few collector's items, including water saved from the stream. Third, getting the agreement on raising the debt ceiling passed by both houses of Congress, not a given. The President and the Speaker of the House lobbying now to get it through. And right now, 74 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Flood Watch, special coverage on KSL News Radio.
This week marks the 40th, I hate to say anniversary, because when I think of anniversaries, I think of celebrations. I don't think folks in 1983 were celebrating what was happening when City Creek started to flood downtown Salt Lake City and turn State Street into a river.
It was one of the wildest pictures I've ever seen, where you see somebody kayaking down Main Street. That was a very, very famous picture of that time. It was planned, though. They were diverting the water on purpose because of the massive flooding. They had a historic year of snow, and then it warmed up so quickly that they just had massive flooding issues. They had backups and they had debris buildups. It was incredibly difficult for these folks.
A record amount of snowfall this year, this season. And I've been sitting around watching the apps and watching the news coverage, Dave, when I'm not here at Broadcast House, just waiting for it to happen again. And we had that little scare a few weeks back. Well, it wasn't exactly a little scare if you're up overnight sandbagging your streets with the Immigration Creek. Turned out to be a blockage in the system, which is what we had back in 1983. We've learned, too. There was a massive blockage in the storm drain system.
Yeah.
Jamie Huff, she's with the Division of Emergency Management, and you've joined us many times before as we help Utah be ready. So good morning once again, Jamie.
Good morning. Thanks for having us again.
Remind us how 1983 does or doesn't compare to the precipitation that we've had this year.
Well, in terms of precipitation, we've had more. So I would consider it a comparison where we've had record snowfall back then in the 80s. It was 29 inches, 26 inches of snow water equivalent. And this year we've had 30. We've had even more this year. So it's very similar.
So why are we doing so well right now? Is it just Mother Nature that the warm up, cool down in the last several weeks? Has that been the solution? Is it just good luck?
No, I actually think it's a combination of things. We did have a lot of lessons learned from 83 because we do see a lot of similarities from 83. But I do think we've had more mitigation efforts and preparedness efforts since 1983. Knowing what happened back then, we took those lessons and put them to work this year. So we've had a lot of infrastructure improvements. Specifically, City Creek has had some major repairs done following the 1983 and 84 events. That they did a major rehaul of the storm drainage system on that creek, which I think helped. But also in terms of this year, our cities and communities have done an excellent job preparing and basically being prepared for what could potentially happen based on the amount of snow and information that we've had.
Tracy Harrison, also on the line, State Floodplain Program Manager. All these amazing titles that we never knew existed until we need you, Tracy. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Dave and I were broadcasting live from the mouth of Big Cottonwood Canyon in Salt Lake County on Thursday, and we chose that location because the county had sort of anticipated that would be the beginning of peak runoff. I was grateful we didn't see any Memorial Day weekend flooding. What's the landscape look like today after a warmer weekend?
So, yeah, that we are very grateful for that. They're still monitoring, and we've got active areas that we're looking at. I think the state and community, like Jamie said, has done a really great job in preparing. We've got our cameras that are out there. We've got UDOT that's out there. They're putting a lot more sandbags than we had. So I think our community has done a really great way of pulling together and taking a look at historical flows, and we know what that peak rise is going to be when we know it's going to break out of the banks, and we're monitoring that. So I think it's just all of us kind of pulling together as we do in Utah.
If I remember correctly, 83, although it was obviously kind of the culmination, that is the pictures that ended up on the front pages, but 82 was a busy water year as well. Does it change anything for you folks if you start stacking these heavy water years on top of each other?
I think a lot of that, like the flooding that we had in 82, we had pretty full reservoirs. So when the 83 event came along, we didn't have a lot of water capacity storage. And this year, knowing what was going to happen, we were doing some early releases down south in Gunlock. We did some early releases of the East Canyon. So I think were better prepared. They released a lot of water knowing that we're going to need a little bit more storage for our water that was coming off the snow melt. So I think that helped us a great deal, where I don't think we saw that back in 82 and the 83. I think that was one of our top lessons learned, because water's so precious, right? We're in a desert, and we think of a desert state, but we do flood. We do get these, severe, storm events sometimes. So I think better preparation this time. We've got some of that water out so we can store more water in.
We're talking right now to Jamie Huff and also Tracy Harrison. We often talk about being ready, Be Ready Utah, and we apparently are very ready for the runoff, because we haven't seen the kind of flooding that we thought we might see, and we're thankful for that. And Tracy, when you mentioned these river cameras, which I think are phenomenal, and if you cannot sleep at night, just Google Utah Live river cameras, and that'll put you right out. So I'm watching the video right now live from Spanish Fork. It looks like the Spanish Fork River and I-15, and I don't know. I'm uncomfortable with how high that river is right now, as it looks like it goes under I-15. But you're the expert. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm not quite the expert when it comes to the UDOT and how they're monitoring it. I do know, like I say, we are monitoring it. Right now it is, predicted that it's going to hold, right? So we're going to be able to hopefully keep that in the banks. But we're preparing the best that we can. It is possible that it might overflow a bit. Yeah. I think they've got some equipment there to help as much as they can, but a lot of that's just up to Mother Nature and how fast that snow melt is going to occur.
In our final 30 seconds, final question. It's one thing when the water is rushing out of the mountains in a very fast way, but then it starts hitting some of these flat plains. I think specifically of the Fremont area, Fremont High School, Plain City area, where it kind of flattens out and it stops moving so quickly. What do you do for those flatter areas?
Well, most of those flatter areas are where our natural floodplains, right? They're going to store that water, and they're going to have to get saturated, into the ground. It's going to take a little bit of time. We do have, like Jamie's aware of, ponding on our flooding sources. For people that are in that area, obviously, we're looking at sub pumps. We're looking at sandbagging around your window wells to try and keep that water from coming into the basement areas. But that's where the water is supposed to kind of flatten out on our down slopes in these kind of plain areas, and then it's just going to be up to Mother Nature to evaporate that water and let that water go back into the ground.
Well, thank you for joining us, Jamie Huff and Tracy Harrison from the Utah Division of Emergency Management.
Fingers crossed. Things continue to hold. So far, so good. But I know there are some people who are listening right now. I was like, what about my neighborhood? It's flooding. Yes, we know there has been some. Thankfully, most of our preparations have been paying off.
KSL FM Midvale, KSL Salt Lake City. Listen on the KSL News Radio app and in your car at 102.7 FM. KSL News Radio, Utah's all-day companion for news.
It's 11 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour, Utah's 2 U.S. senators are divided on the bill to raise the federal debt ceiling. Here's KSL News Radio's Mark Jackson.
Senator Lee has said he is disappointed that the bill doesn't go far enough and promises that he would have more to say on the matter in coming days. A statement sent out from Senator Mitt Romney's office says Romney is satisfied that there is a bill and that it does make spending concessions and that it would prevent a default and subsequent financial meltdown if it is passed by Congress and signed by President Biden. Romney says that his only regret is that the proposal does not address entitlement reform. Senator Lee says the deal falls short when it comes to spending concessions. Mark Jackson, KSL News Radio.
A judge has dismissed criminal charges filed against a tennis coach from Park City High School who was accused of putting a student in a chokehold last summer. The judge ruled the prosecution did not prove Lonnie Wilcox used unjustified force in restraining the girl that slapped her. The Park Record also reports the girl in question pointed to her collarbone and not her neck when she testified in an earlier hearing. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. A series of drones hit a neighborhood in Moscow, and Russia claims they were sent from Ukraine. Russia's defense ministry says 8 drones were sent, and they were only miles away from President Vladimir Putin's country residence. ABC's Tom Sufi-Burridge is in Kharkiv, Ukraine, with more.
Russian officials saying most were shot down, but buildings damaged, 2 people lightly injured. A Ukrainian official suggesting it's now not just Ukraine that can get attacked by drones.
Ukrainian forces said they shot down more than 20 drones headed toward their capital city, Kiev. And your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average, down on the day, 127 points right now. The NASDAQ up about 73 points. Looks like a sunny spring day. That weather's next. KSL News Time, 11:02.
This summer, the political season heats up.
By August, it'll be time for debates. Can you believe it?
We're planning coverage of the real issues, the important stories that impact how we live.
Listen each morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Look, folks, nutrition is the name of the game. You want to drop those unwanted pounds? Nutrition is the way to do it. And Soda Weight Loss has an amazing nutrition program that's specifically tailored to you. Not anyone else, just you. You work with a consultant and they'll give you a plan that will help you drop that unwanted weight and then keep it off. That's the cool part. You know, you get into maintenance and you get to keep it off. We've had tremendous success here on all of our stations with folks that have implemented the Soda Weight Loss, including myself. You follow the program, you're going to drop the weight. Guys drop 3 to 5 pounds a week. Women drop 2 to 3 pounds of fat weight. Yeah, that nasty, ugly fat weight. Want to get rid of it. This system is based on science. It's not a pill. It's not a gimmick. It's science. And if you follow it, it will happen. Over 5,000 people have had similar results that we've had, and you can have them too. Stop the frustration. Go check out sodaweightloss.com.
Getting close to retirement? Or have you retired? You've probably got a ton of stress-filled questions on your mind. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth. Getting a second opinion with an individualized investment plan is vital, and our fiduciary advisors do just that. Take it from this Trajan Wealth client.
It was just so pleasant, so comfortable. I think we had 7 different accounts, just stuff scattered all over the place. And then so we just started, here's this, move this. And he even explained it a couple different times. But if I have more questions, he said, just give us a call. And that's what I love. He's a phone call away. I'm glad I know these guys. Such a huge weight off my shoulder.
Imagine not second-guessing investments or monthly retirement income. That's the peace of mind you'll get from working with Trajan Wealth. Call 801-899-7600 today or visit TrajanWealth.com.
Actual client, no compensation, no conflicts. Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
The UACPA supports certified professional accountants in Utah through ongoing professional education and leadership development for an ever-changing financial world. Find a CPA at uacpa.org.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union, helping members since 1935. Here's Ricky Meese.
Freeway traffic in good shape. Davis County drivers' road work is slowing down the drive southbound. Highway 89 going through Layton to Kaysville. And a crash with Salt Lake City PD at the scene, 1700 East, 1300 South. This is the Place Heritage Park, the place to learn, explore, and enjoy Utah history. Perfect for service projects, team building, birthdays, weddings, reunions, and more. Plan today at thisistheplace.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather mostly sunny today and tomorrow, but with a chance of afternoon thunderstorms tomorrow and then through the rest of the week. Our highs will drop into the 70s toward the weekend. Right now, it's 74 degrees and mostly sunny at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. This is Utah's all-day companion for news.
Dave and Dujanovic have inside sources.
Congress is broken. Say that again. Congress is broken. Could this be the moment it is broken open? That is an op-ed, an opinion article in The Hill written by our very own Boyd Matheson.
Boyd sat down at his computer, just started typing. And this is what spilled out of his soul. Boyd, when you talked Congress is broken, this is something we've all said a million different times. It has a very negative connotation to it. You guys can't do your job. Our governor called them imbeciles. He apologized for that, but he said they can't do their job. When you said that Congress is broken, how do you put a positive spin on that?
Well, it's the moment of because it's not enough to be broken. I learned this from David Brooks from the New York Times. Interviewed him a number of times over the years, and he often talks about this idea that it's not enough to be broken. You have to be broken open if you're going to ever have any kind of change or transformation. And so that was really the question that was running around in my brain was, wait a minute, is this a chance to really change the dynamic? We have such a frozen status quo in Washington, and it's actually kind of a comfort zone because everybody can say it was broken. Even we citizens say it's broken. Congress has themselves say it's broken, and then they shrug their shoulders and say, well, there's nothing we can do. We're too divided as a nation. And that gives Congress an excuse to do nothing. It gives presidents of both parties the excuse to do what they want by executive order.
Did Congress prove it's broken in the last couple of weeks with this debt ceiling debate, or did it prove that it can actually negotiate?
Well, the fact that they're even having this conversation shows how broken it is. Because there should never be a threat of a government shutdown. There should never be a threat of default on our payments, ever. And the way you prevent that is for Congress to do its job. If Congress does its job every September, which goes through 13 appropriations bills, allocates all the spending for the government, all of that should be taken care of in September of every year. But what do? Because it's broken, they kick the can down the road. You have this right before Christmas 1,000+ page omnibus bill with all kinds of crazy spending packaged in there, and we just keep rolling along. And so what's broken is there should never be, ever a threat of a default, and there never, ever should be a threat of a government shutdown. If Congress does their job, it immediately takes that off the table.
Specifically, as you say, once we evolve from being broken to broken open, you use a great metaphor. And it was, we talk about this, the clouds break open. They nourish the earth that is broken open. The seed goes inside the earth. The seed breaks open, creates the wheat. The wheat breaks open to become the bread.
Yeah.
We break up the bread to nourish our bodies. It was a great metaphor. So how do we do that with Congress?
So I think this is what was happening. I was driving home, sitting in traffic on I-15, of course, listening to Triple Team Traffic here on KSL. And I was just rolling around in my head all the rumblings I was hearing from members of Congress on both sides of the aisle. And the White House has also been saying, we're going to have 100 Democrats are going to have to vote on this plan in order for it to pass the House. And so I started doing the math. I'm really horrible at math, so I kept it really simple.
Join the club.
Yeah. So I kept it super simple. I said, okay, so you have to get to 218 votes to pass anything in Congress. So if the president and Speaker McCarthy are confident, like super confident that this is going to pass, then that means there's probably 100 Democrats who, in no ball's chance in Guam, they're going to vote for this because they think it spends too little and doesn't tax enough. That's the far left of the Democratic Party. On the far right of the Republicans, there's probably 100 who won't vote for it because it spends too much and probably taxes too much for them. So that means we still have the possibility of 218, which would require 218 Republicans, approximately, and 100 Democrats. And so the broken open moment for me is, okay, if you do the math, that's 218. If those 100 Democrats and the 218 Republicans got together and formed a caucus, they would immediately be the majority party. So not only would the bill pass, they could actually choose the Speaker of the House. They could actually govern from that center left to center right space. It's a radical concept, but it's one that we need to think again about in the country because, as we said, the far left and the far right are convincing us that we're broken and there's nothing we can do about it. But the reality is there is a majority out there, and it's not on the far left and it's not on the far right.
Can I just reset for a moment for those folks who weren't aware that there does appear to be an agreement between President Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy regarding the debt ceiling and some spending issues. We talked in great depth about it in the 9 o'clock hour, but in a nutshell, the Republicans wanted, a $1.5 trillion limit, and they got a $4 trillion limit in terms of spending. Am I paraphrasing that right?
Yeah, basically pushes it into 2025.
And there's other issues involved in this package. This is what is now before the House Rules Committee. When it comes out of rules, it will go to the House for a vote, and then if it passes, it will go to the Senate. And through it all, Boyd is saying this is a moment for a broken Congress to be broken open. His opinion piece is posted online in The Hill. I'm looking at it right now. It is, as usual, brilliant Boyd. As brilliant is Boyd. Boyd is brilliant. But I don't know how I'm sorry. I don't know how we fix it. That canvas is this is beautifully written, and it is an amazing concept and is a place we all want to get to as Americans. But how?
So it starts with the three of us in this room having this very conversation. And then it extends to everybody who's listening to this conversation. And then it extends to their neighbors and their friends and their networks. I don't think it's likely that this will come just out of the halls of Congress. It never does. But we have to remember that it is community and culture that lead, and the politicians will follow. And far too many of us, as voters, have accepted what is really the big lie, and that is it just has to be the two parties. And that's what they want us to believe. But at the moment we decide, you know what, there is another way. There's a third way to actually get something done and take it a little different. And whether you agree with the right or the left or the middle, having a different conversation in Congress, just imagine what that would do to the dynamics if you had if the Democrats and the Republicans were the two minority parties in the House. Even if it's still a bit of a mix and a mess, that's okay. I'll take that mix and mess 6 ways to Sunday. Because it would be different from the status quo that they keep convincing us. And this is where I have to ask the question, what are you afraid of? Those 218 members of Congress, what are you afraid of? And, of course, what they're afraid of is losing the support of a party for a re-election.
Yeah.
As voters, what are we afraid of? We're afraid that the other side might win and we lose power and influence. And so it's the question for all of us. What are we afraid of? To have a different kind of conversation about Congress.
And as you and I were texting this weekend, I think one of the things I said along those lines is because they're more worried about keeping their job than doing their job.
Yeah.
And that has been the problem for a long time. And I think specifically of what's going on with Senator Mitt Romney. A lot of people don't know this. But he voted policy-wise with President Trump more than Mike Lee did. Mm-hmm. Most people would be shocked about that, but he does not like President Trump, the person, and he goes against him in that way. And as soon as he does that, now he's a rhino. He's a Republican in name only. There's name-calling. There's rhino hunting. There's all of this stuff that goes on. And you get smacked back in line, or that's the hope. As soon as you branch off just a little bit, we're going to smack you back in line.
Yeah, that's right, because it's always about the threat of a primary challenge, that if you're not liked within the party, then you're going to have a primary challenge. Now, I want to take it one step further. So if you look at how this is being different, I was just texting with a member of Congress, actually one from the left and one from the right, and they are both thrilled that what they are considering is a 96-page bill, not thousands and thousands of pages, 96-page bill, and they have 3 days to actually see what's in it before they vote. Now, we all sit here and think, well, that's crap. That's crazy. That's crazy talk. But that's how it should be. Yeah. And so, again, as part of that breaking it open is, wow, they're actually going to have time to read the bill and study what's in it and then make a determination about how they want to vote. That should be the norm, not the exception. And so you have to look at it in that context of how do we make that the norm, because that will change all the conversations in Congress and hopefully in our communities as well.
Thank you, Boyd. I guarantee you nobody yet has read front to back the omnibus bill. Yet. To this day, no one has read that full
Not
bill.
a chance.
But this one, lots of people will read it. In fact, maybe that's what we read on the in our evening. Boyd Matheson, thank you. Just a quick little 96-page read of of the agreement. Awesome.
Next,
compelling.
This same thing sort of happened under President Obama's watch, right? We were back up against the wall regarding a looming debt crisis in 2011. Here's the headline on CNN. Obama agreed to $2.1 trillion in spending cuts to end the 2011 debt ceiling crisis. Let's find out what happened next.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Hey, before the talk starts here each morning, KSL is all news. I'm Tim Hughes.
And I'm Amanda Dixon. We get you the first word on major news and updated weather.
KSL News Radio is your morning companion for news.
We're lucky in Utah to enjoy all 4 seasons.
These storms, they bubble up and move quick, and then they zip on out.
Sometimes all in one day.
We did have a tornado warning that was issued.
June means everything from hailstorms to 100-degree days. That's why you need traffic and weather together. Every 10 minutes on the 9s on KSL News Radio.
Hi, friends. Dan, the laptop man here from PC Laptops. I get a lot of emails with feedback from customers. Here's one. Dear Dan, I just had the best experience ever. I bought a computer from Shane at your State Street store. I asked several what I thought were really stupid questions. Shane was super courteous and made me feel comfortable through the whole process. People need to understand how important it is to support a local company, especially when your experience is so good. PC Laptops really does love me. Signed, Satisfied. I love hearing feedback like that. It really just gives me the chills. It's the whole reason why I got into the computer business in the first place. You can get a brand new PC Laptops desktop, and they start at only $29 a month. And it comes with a lifetime warranty. That means if anything goes wrong, we're going to take care of you. Just check us out at PCLaptops.com. That's PCLaptops.com. At PC Laptops, we really do love you.
Here's what happens when you get brand new custom vinyl windows from Advanced Window Products. All of a sudden, your house has more curb appeal. Your home is more secure. Your heating and air conditioning bills tumble, and you have a local company in business 37 years standing behind their work for life. But that's not all. Since they build your custom windows at their facility in Salt Lake, there's no middleman markup. So you can save money on the highest quality windows on the market. Argon-filled double-pane glass. Insulation within the vinyl framing. Top of the line, built to spec. They will create magnificent bow windows, doggy doors cut into the glass. Any color, it's all custom, all installed by their team, and every window is guaranteed for life. Rocky Mountain and Dominion offer rebates. Advanced Windows offers 60-month 0% financing, and right now, save $2,000 on 10 windows or more. So save now, pay later. Call Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, or visit advancedwindowsusa.com.
You trust us for news and information in your car. Now trust us at home. KSL News Radio is your window to the outside world, keeping you informed on the latest breaking news, weather, traffic, sports, and more. Listen on your Amazon Echo or Google Home device. Just say, Alexa, open KSL News Radio, or listen on the KSL News Radio app. Text the word app to 57500. KSL News Radio, Utah's all-day companion for news.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Utah's two U.S. senators are on opposite sides of the debt ceiling debate. Second, charges have been dropped against a high school tennis coach accused of assaulting one of her players. Third, Russia claims Ukraine launched drones against a neighborhood near Moscow and that it shot most of them down. Right now, 74 degrees, mostly sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Talking about the debt ceiling agreement in principle that is now before Congress and will, if it passes, will wind its way over to the Senate in very short order here this week. Of course, you can track this developing story this afternoon with Jeff Kaplan on your drive home. But just in a nutshell, the New York Times, Dave, is reporting that there will be like $136 billion in spending cuts under this deal in order to avoid a catastrophic default and save our economy. So $136 billion in cuts from different areas, including like the IRS. There's a new work requirement for food stamps, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, we're talking about trillions of dollars in debt, and we're talking about tens of billions of dollars in cuts. Like, to say that's a spit in the ocean is such an understatement. Now, this is not something unique, right? This whole negotiating the debt ceiling and trying to get cuts, this has been going on for a long time. In fact, President Biden had a front row seat back in 2011 when he was President Obama's vice president, and Obama was battling it out with Republicans. John Boehner at the time, he was the House Speaker, on this very same thing, using the debt limit, the debt ceiling, as a negotiating of spending in general in government.
And they came up with some cuts, right? They came up with some cuts. So we've been to this movie before. This is what Dave's saying. We've been to this movie before. And back then, 12 years ago, a dozen years ago, they came to an agreement to cut, whether you think it was enough, billions of dollars in government spending, right?
Yeah, it was $900 billion initially to cut in government spending. But then they were supposed to find another $1.2 trillion. That was the agreement. Another $1.2 trillion at some future date, somewhere down the road. Well, guess what didn't happen? The $1.2 trillion later on down the road. Because when you promise that you're not going to spend, that doesn't mean they may not change their minds.
So they reach an agreement but fail to deliver on the big headline. Wow. James Curry, Associate Professor of Political Science at the University of Utah. I guess this just goes to show you that one Congress cannot promise cuts for a forthcoming Congress, a future Congress.
Yeah, that's right. The thing about appropriations, about government appropriations, is that they have to be reconsidered every year, at least these discretionary appropriations, which is what we're really talking about here. And so one Congress can set a budget, they can spend the money they want to spend it, but then you can change how you're going to do it the next year because every year we have to do it again. So there's never any hard and fast way to make sure that these things stick.
So are these agreements that we're battling out and we've been talking about for so long, is it a paper tiger?
It is and it isn't. I mean, on one hand, it was just like the 2011 deal, which looked bigger on paper than it did in practice. If you talk to, some conservatives, they would still say that, like, well, we probably ended up spending less over the subsequent decade than we would have without that agreement. And that's probably true. But it's nowhere near the level of cuts that was put on paper. And this has been going on for a long time. You can go back to the 90s where they supposedly balanced the federal budget in an agreement between the Clinton White House and congressional Republicans, but ultimately it was only ever on paper. And you can go back to the 80s with a lot of the spending cuts and tax changes that were made in the early 1980s, but essentially unraveled as the decade went on. So things never kind of work out exactly as they are on paper, but it probably still has an overall impact in exactly how much we're spending year over year.
James Curry, Associate Professor of Political Science at the University of Utah. Your expertise seems to be Capitol Hill, back in D.C. So, do you feel like lawmakers just hope the headlines fade away and we all forget, and then they kind of settle back into the spending mode that they're known to always sort of be in?
I think to some degree it's really just none of them, like the ones who want to make cuts can never get as far as they want. Like they come in, oftentimes when you get a new majority, especially a new Republican majority, they come with the big head of steam that we're gonna reduce federal spending, we're gonna rein this in, and then reality hits, and that they don't necessarily have the votes to do that. A lot of the programs that they want to cut funding to are actually quite popular, or the things that you would actually have to cut to make a huge impact on federal deficit, or like Social Security and Medicare. And that reality sort of hits, and then people settle back into, well, I guess we don't really want to cut these things as much as we say, and we don't want to raise taxes to get rid of the deficit. And things sort of settle back in until the next time you have an election where you see an influx of new conservatives who come in with this as their mantle, and then we do it over again.
Help walk me through the quote-unquote savings, where they are just trying to limit growth. They're not necessarily trying to scale things back in many of these programs. It's just to slow down the growth to a certain percentage or to a limit.
Yeah, so say what you have is a 10-year forecast in which you're planning to increase spending by 5% on programs or overall, and so then spending is going to go up 5% each year, and then 5% on that, which becomes not quite exponential, but bigger and bigger and bigger, because that 5% growth becomes a bigger dollar figure each year. If you can rein that in to what they're saying, a 1% growth is what they're saying that this would have on non-defense discretionary spending. That means less money spent over time relative to what you had planned to spend over time. But again, a lot of that is really on paper because Congress can change course at any time. They could decide to spend even less than that. Those 10-year projections are really based on what was agreed to the prior Congress, but isn't really a forecast because we all know things are going to change as a new Congress comes in, as new politics get put into place, as new events happen. And so it looks like, it sounds like it's a reduction, and it is in some sense, but it really still is you're spending more year after year.
Talking about the debt limit deal that is now being considered, is it hitting the Rules Committee today in the House, and then will eventually go to a House vote and then over to the Senate. It was struck between President Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy this weekend, and it includes a lot of many aspects to it, but it cuts about $136 billion from budget spending. It claws back some of the COVID money, like $28 billion in COVID money that hasn't, not all of it, but that has not been spent yet. And I just wonder, Professor Curry, if both sides stayed in kind of a safe zone. What I mean by that is this, for example, the work requirement for food stamps. Republicans wanted to raise it from 49 years old to 64, requiring people up to age 64 to work 20 hours a week or show proof that they're in a training program. And instead, both sides end up compromising and settling on 54 years old. Well, that's super safe because you're not angering the people who aren't potentially on Social Security or on Medicare. And 54 years old, it's like, well, that's my age group. What am I going to do about it? I mean, it's kind of like this really safe zone. And in a sense, for as much as both sides were fighting about it, I thought that kind of ended up falling flat. Now, if you're on food stamps and you need that money, then you feel a lot differently. But from a political sense, it was very unimpressive to me.
Yeah, I mean, this is just the reality of our government to some degree, and that even when we have unified government, we don't really have one-party rule because we have things like the filibuster. We also have the fact that each party isn't ever totally unified behind what it says it wants to do, which means the other party's votes come into play. And what that means is it's really hard to do big, bold things, or big, bold things only happen very rarely. And they usually do in response to some sort of crisis or overwhelming public demand for something. And that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about something where each side wanted stuff. Republicans wanted bigger cuts and bigger changes to programs. Democrats essentially wanted to make no changes to budgetary outlooks. They just wanted to increase the debt ceiling. And what you get then is what we usually get, which is something in the middle where neither side can feel really, really, really happy, but then what you turn to is essentially trying to spin the deal to sound like a victory, which is what you're seeing House Republicans and Kevin McCarthy's office doing this weekend and today, which is saying, like, this is some of the biggest cuts we've ever had. We're making major changes. And, nothing that he's saying is a lie, but it's also not as big or bold as the things they had said they wanted to do or passed in their bill that they could get through just the House of Representatives about a month ago. This is the reality of American government, and you can either take that to be a good thing and that we compromise and we moderate, or you can take it as a bad thing if you're hoping for something bigger.
Jim Curry, thank you for joining us, Associate Professor of Poli-Sci at the University of Utah.
An hour ago, we thought we were just talking about State Farm pulling out of California for homeowners with homeowners insurance for new homeowners. And then that story turned into something much bigger than we had anticipated when we got the Utah Insurance Division Director on the line. If you missed that conversation, stay tuned.
It's 11:31 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. One of the conditions of a proposed debt ceiling deal on Capitol Hill would be a tighter work requirement for those receiving government food stamps. The agreement would dictate that people younger than 55 would have to work at least 80 hours a week to qualify for aid.
The end result will be a reduction in folks that are eligible to remain covered.
Maurice Presses with the Department of Workforce Services tells David Dujanovic it's likely that some people older than 49 years here in Utah could wind up losing their eligibility for food stamps. A judge has dismissed criminal charges filed against a Park City High School tennis coach who was accused of putting a student in a chokehold last summer. The judge ruled the prosecution did not prove Lonnie Wilcox used unjustified force in restraining the girl that slapped her. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Some conservative Republicans in the House are objecting to the deal to raise the federal debt ceiling worked out by Speaker McCarthy and President Biden. One of them is Chip Roy of Texas.
Last week, there was a breach. There was a breach in the structure that we agreed to put in place to make sure that we are representing the American people through this heretofore United Republican Conference.
Now some liberal Democrats in the House also oppose the compromise, saying the president should not have agreed to those increased work requirements for people getting SNAP benefits. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down 154 points on the day. The NASDAQ had been up about 70 points, but now is down to about 25. And let me correct that. The NASDAQ was up 25 points. Our KSL weather will be mostly sunny. That's next. KSL News Time, 11:33.
Early mornings can be hard enough, just getting yourself going.
We try to make it a little easier with news and weather from comfortable, trusted anchors and reporters.
Join us on Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9
on KSL News Radio.
Utah has some of the hardest water in the entire country. That was a revelation to me about 6 years ago when I had Connecticut of Utah come out to my house and show me the difference that soft water would make. I knew it was a problem. I didn't realize that it was such a problem until my dishwasher had these hard water buildups, corrosion. It burst. It flooded my kitchen, went down into the basement. It was such a nightmare. It was terrible. So that's why my wife and I decided to make an investment to get a water softener. So Connecticut came in, they installed it in just a few hours. And the way the Connecticut system is designed, there's no electronics that have to be reset or programmed. It just works mechanically. You get 24/7 soft water all the time. It doesn't have to recharge in the morning. It just works. So if you're interested in getting soft water into your home, making that investment, 801-576-8600 is the phone number you can call. It's Connecticut of Utah, 801-576-8600. Or check them out online at softwaterutah.com.
My brother-in-law died suddenly, and now my sister and her kids have to sell their home. That's why I told my husband we could not put off getting life insurance any longer. An agent offered us a 10-year, $500,000 policy for nearly $50 a month. Then we called SelectQuote. SelectQuote found us identical coverage for only $19 a month, a savings of $369 a year.
Whether you need a $500,000 policy or a $5 million policy, SelectQuote could save you more than 50% on term life insurance. For your free quote, call SelectQuote at 1-800-330-1991. That's 1-800-330-1991. Or go to SelectQuote.com. That's 1-800-330-1991. SelectQuote. We shop, you save. Full details on example policies at SelectQuote.com/commercials.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union, helping members since 1935. Here's Ricky Meese.
Freeway traffic continues to roll along. It's looking good, especially I-15 both directions. Between Willard Bay and Utah Lake, we do have road work with reduced lanes and reduced speeds, especially on the southbound side of Highway 89 going through Layton, and the final cleanup of a crash 1300 South, 1700 East. Cedar City, where summer meets adventure. Enjoy live entertainment with the Shakespeare Festival, shopping, dining, museums, hiking, biking, disc golf, and camping under a starry sky. Level up your adventure. Visit cedarcity.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, mostly sunny today and tomorrow, but with a chance of afternoon thunderstorms, and that'll continue through the rest of the week. Highs will drop into the 70s toward the weekend. Right now, 75 degrees and mostly sunny at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM at KSLNewsRadio.com. This is Utah's all-day companion for news.
Flood Watch, special coverage on KSL News Radio.
KSL 5 television reporting that a heavy runoff means more water and less beach at Bear Lake. And Dave, you know Bear Lake like the back of your hand.
Yeah, that's my spot. We'll spend a lot of time up there, but this is something we've experienced for decades. When the water is down, it creates a whole bunch of beach area where you can go and play, but then when the water comes up, you lose all of it. So you have people that are essentially, especially on that west side of Bear Lake, when they're trying to play in the water, they pull off to the side of the road, and they're basically setting up their lawn chairs right on the road, just barely off of the road, so that they're just playing on that water that is so high.
Mike Anderson of KSL 5 TV, I was going to say probably a silly reporter question. Let me just put it that way, silly reporter question. But for those people who don't know, where is Bear Lake and how popular is it in the summer?
Yeah, hey guys. Yeah, of course, it's widely popular for people from Utah and Idaho because it's right there on the border of the two states in Rich County. So, yeah, they call it the Caribbean of the Rockies because of the crystal blue water.
The Caribbean of the Rockies. It must have been a long time since I've been there because I don't remember it being called that. But now I want to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's a place that people go for the summer, and the crowds there are growing every year. So you'll have to compete for spots out there.
So this is one of the largest, I guess, reservoirs. It is a lake. Everyone plays on it, but it is a large reservoir. How much has it come up, Mike?
So, yeah, within the past couple of weeks, it's come up about 3 feet. But when you look at that horizontally, that turns out to hundreds of feet that are being taken away on the beach. And so we're already seeing that space eaten up quite quickly.
Mike Anderson of KSL 5 TV on the line because Bear Lake, one of many spots that is just flush with water this year, seeing that beach eaten away by water. Is it gonna? What are water managers saying, Mike? Is that going to be an ongoing thing all summer long? What do you know about that?
Yeah, well, the runoff's going to continue through a lot of the summer, and so we're going to see that continue to happen. And so what it means is, if you're going up there, is that there's going to be a lot fewer parking spots available because the two state parks on the north end, Idaho, and the south end in Utah, they can't have people parking on the beach this year. So for example, the north end, they typically, on the busy hot summer days, they fill up, early in the morning, and they have to put the sign up that they're full. And so you're going to have a lot more of that this year. In fact, they started a reservation system on the north for that purpose. And last year we had that with a lot of beach space, but this year they're going to be making reservations with far fewer spaces to give out.
Wow. Thanks so much, Mike, for the update. You can track Mike's story at ksltv.com. He's also on all the social media platforms as well, so you can check out his reporting there about Bear Lake. Meteorologist Kevin Eubank also on the line. I guess that's great news. We've got all kinds of water for water managers and for people who like to drink water, but kind of difficult if you want to recreate on it. You can't find a parking spot.
Well, and I don't want to sound negative, but boo-hoo-hoo. We don't have beach to park on. Come on. We've needed water for years. We're in a horrible drought, and now we're crying that we don't have enough parking spaces. Let me tell you the truth. I actually got both of you a full 7-day cruise to the Caribbean of the Rockies.
We're taking
of the Rockies.
we're taking Mike Anderson. We're taking Manderson with us, so you need 3 tickets for that boat ride, Kev. So
7 days around Bear Lake, you're gonna love it.
So okay, so boo-hoo us. Is this going to be an issue throughout the whole summer? Then we're going to have to be fighting for parking spots on a reservation system.
Listen, this is the deal. These waterways were meant for to hold water. So in high years, we lose beach. In low years, we have miles of beach, and we have to tractor out boats and other things. So anyone who's been around Bear Lake knows this is the ebb and flow of that lake. And the same thing happens right at Lake Powell or at the Great Salt Lake. When you add multiple feet of water, it totally changes the shoreline. This is a really good problem to have here in Utah. And so we'll take the water problem versus the non-water problem any day. But it is going to continue. Our runoff is going to be prolonged into June and into July. That high elevation snow is going to keep outflow water out enough to equalize and manage the waterways so we don't flood out big reservoirs. But really, this is a good scenario. I mean, probably the bigger issue at Bear Lake is just how cold the water is because of how much snow has come in. So it's definitely a problem this year. But I think it's probably a good problem.
I was wondering how much is left because that lake obviously is so high. How much of that runoff is still sitting up in those mountains that is going to come down? But you say it's going to go through June.
10 to 15% left in that area, Dave. So there's other spots that still have 30% left, right, up of Snowbird and everywhere else. So there's some bigger totals that still have to come down. But we're now almost to June. And we've got another 3 to 4 weeks for that real high elevation record snowpack to come down. So another month. And if we keep doing it like we did during the month of May, it's going to be perfect. You couldn't have asked for a better scenario, guys, to bring this snow melt down. So, yes, there's still water flowing in, and it will continue to flow in the month of June, but not to the level where they're worried about flooding. They've got enough outflow control to balance what's coming in, and it should be really good at places like Bear Lake, Flaming Gorge, a lot of those other big reservoirs.
Just a real quick Debbie Downer moment. Kevin Eubank, meteorologist with KSL, of course, always on flood watch with us. I worry about these heavy rains that we're getting. I maybe it didn't rain like crazy at your house this weekend, but oh my goodness, it was crazy at mine. In fact, we got hail. Is that hurting us in any way?
No,
in terms of
Debbie,
water
actually
management?
not.
Okay.
No, it's not. It was really good. In fact, the month of June was drier than normal, and it was warmer than normal, which was perfect. We did have storms, but they were spot storms where you'd get a quarter of an inch in a hurry, and then that storm was gone. How long did that storm last at your house?
I don't know, 20 minutes.
A
But
blink.
it fell.
Yeah.
I got video of it on Facebook if you want to watch it, Kev. I mean, my goodness.
I saw
nuts.
your video.
Yeah,
it was impressive, and it was a downpour. And the good news, you got a quarter to a third of an inch in about 20 minutes, and it was gone. So if that was widespread or that was rain on the snowpack, totally different scenario. But it isn't. It's a summer thunderstorm that bubbles fast, hits hard, and then moves out. And that was actually a really good thing this month of May. We actually are tied for the second most days with storms. We've had 16 days in Salt Lake City with rain. but the totals have been really, really light.
Yeah.
So it's been good. It's been a good scenario.
Kevin, you talk about the temperatures. I just looked it up. Bear Lake, 53 degrees is the water temperature.
Oh, so warm and cozy in the Caribbean of the Rockies.
It's the worst gift ever. No one's swimming in that. Kevin Eubank, thank you for joining us, KSL meteorologist.
All right, straight ahead, let's revisit our conversation with State Farm pulling out of California for homeowners who are buying a home. So they're not going to be underwriting any new policies because of Mother Nature. When we talked to Utah's insurance commissioner just about an hour ago about what California is doing, is it too much to say he dropped a bombshell on us about Utah?
No, I think that's a good way to describe it, because my very fear was that this would start a trend. And he says, yeah, very well could be a trend where big-time insurance companies stop insuring homes that are in troublesome areas.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Dave and Debbie are just getting the talk started.
From 1 to 3, check out Inside Sources.
Get a look behind the curtain in D.C. from Boyd Matheson.
Your all-day companions are here
on KSL News Radio.
Get updates on Jazz and BYU news and score updates. Text Jazz or BYU at the Cyprus Credit Union KSL text line, 57500.
Did you know you can get someone to shop for you? Stitch Fix really gets me in what I need. Even better, they save me a trip to the mall. It's easy. I share my style, size, and budget, and they do the shopping for me. Stitch Fix sends me things that fit and make me feel like a more stylish version of myself. I keep what works and send back the rest. No subscription required, no commitment, just my style. Stitch Fix. Get started today at stitchfix.com/radio.
Your home or business is a reflection of you. Now, if you're looking to take it from middling to sizzling, you need the help of your local CertaPro painters and the power of Pro. That's CertaPro's power of listening to your needs and delivering a customized project plan, and the power of doing the job right, on time, and within your budget. Contact CertaPro painters today at CertaPro.com. The power of Pro.
Each CertaPro painter's business is independently owned and operated.
At Fisher Investments, our clients know we have their backs.
How do your clients know that?
Because Fisher Investments is a fiduciary, the highest standard for a financial advisor. It means we're there for our clients and always put their interests first.
So wait, you do it because you have to?
No, we do it because it's the right thing to do. Our clients trust us with their retirement savings, and we know how important that responsibility is. So we take the time to really get to know them.
Get to know them how?
We make sure we understand their unique goals, finances, health, family, and lifestyle so we can tailor their portfolio to their specific needs. Our goal is to help them achieve a comfortable retirement.
Sounds like a big responsibility. You must make big commissions then, right?
No, we don't sell commission-based products. We have one single transparent fee that's structured so we do better when our clients do better. Visit FisherInvestments.com to find out why investors like you are switching to us. Fisher Investments. Clearly different money management.
Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
This is Derek Miller speaking on business. The Utah Museum of Contemporary Art believes in the power of the art of our time. Through programming, advocacy, and collaboration, they work with artists and communities to build a better world. Executive Director Laura Hurtado has more.
For 90 years, the Utah Museum of Contemporary Art has worked with the leading artistic voices of our age. Originally called the Art Barn and later the Salt Lake Arts Center, the Utah Museum of Contemporary Art was founded by a woman named Alta Rawlings Jensen in the middle of the Great Depression. Her vision was to create a gathering space for artists and writers throughout the state. Today, UMOCA is an award-winning aesthetic force dedicated to advancing contemporary art in Utah. Last year alone, the museum welcomed over 55,000 guests, showed the work of over 100 artists, and offered educational programming to 123,000 Utah K-12 students, both in person and online. The museum features groundbreaking artwork by local, national, and international artists, offering explorations in the contemporary cultural landscape through exhibitions, events, and classes. For more information on upcoming exhibitions and events, please visit utahmoca.org.
The creative community is alive and thriving in Utah. And the Utah Museum of Contemporary Arts helps further this by inviting visitors to be curious and explore the role of art in our lives and our community. I'm Derek Miller with the Salt Lake Chamber, speaking on business.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, new work requirements under the agreement to raise the debt ceiling could push some people off the SNAP or food stamps program. Second, getting that deal through both houses of Congress could be a challenge, with some conservatives and even liberal members of the House opposing it. And third, concern is shifting to Big and Little Cottonwood Canyons as we get closer to the peak of the runoff season. Right now, 75 degrees, mostly sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
It was about an hour ago. We thought we were having a conversation that was solely focused on California and State Farm, major insurance company, telling folks in California, look, if you buy a house, we're out. We're no longer going to insure home buyers and businesses because of the growing catastrophic exposure to things like, Mother Nature, wildfires.
California, 40 million people. That's how many people live there. And if you have a major, one of the biggest insurance companies in the world, State Farm, pulling out and saying, you are uninsurable, it's too dangerous in this area, I worry about when that message starts creeping across the country and when it lands here in Utah. Because if people are building in dangerous areas, and Debbie, we've all seen that. We've seen the home that is hanging precariously off the side of a cliff. You know how you stop people from buying that? Stop insuring them. And I think that would work.
Well, we asked that question, and this is where that bombshell moment came in for both of us, where we looked at each other and went, oh, no, this could actually spill over into Utah. We spoke to the Utah Insurance Commissioner. So the state of Utah has a division, a department of insurance that oversees the insurance companies and probably even takes consumer complaints as well if you have a rub with your insurance company. But John Pike is that man who oversees the state's, he's the insurance commissioner. And we were talking to him about California and State Farm pulling out there. He said he'd seen the news, and that actually there are homes in Utah, homeowners in Utah, that are looking at having the possibility of their insurance, their homeowners insurance, yanked at renewal.
I've been told by several that there are some examples of companies who are either raising the premiums. I think you mentioned that, Dave, or both of you. Or in one case I'm aware of, one company, I won't name at this point, who is not going to renew homeowners policies if they are in what is determined to be a high wildfire risk area.
Now, insurance companies are not a charity. They don't give us insurance because they want what's best for us. They're there to make a profit. And the reason they make a profit is because mostly homes don't get destroyed through natural disaster, whatever, even fire, right? The reason they make money is because most of the homes that are built are totally fine through the duration of their life. They don't have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to replace a home.
I don't consider my monthly payments to my homeowner's insurance company to be a donation either.
True.
I mean, they are a business, and I am a customer. When I purchase homeowners insurance, I don't expect that, midstream we've got this client-company relationship that my renewal comes up and they decide, we're out. Good luck. And now it sounds like in California, State Farm is sticking with those that are already insured as homeowners. They're not dumping them, but they are not taking on any new clients. So they're kind of pulling out for new homeowners. But in Utah, it sounds like this is a sort of after your policy runs out, we're done. That whatever insurance company it is, and he wouldn't get specific with us, they're done. And what do you do?
Yeah, it's a great question because I am very, very uncomfortable with them changing the rules of the game, right? If I've always had insurance, if you've always insured me, and I haven't had any kind of a claim where you've dropped me, I have a problem with them saying, now you're too much of a risk. Because here in Utah, we could be a risk for flooding, for earthquakes, for tornadoes, for a million different things, for fire, obviously, right? If they just are going to insure the safest of the safest of the safe, then most of us along the Wasatch Front, we could get dropped, right? Because all of us are at risk on some level.
Earthquake,
no question.
Yeah, we had a tornado, remember? I mean, somebody died in that tornado, and there was a tremendous amount of damage up in Memory Grove. I don't remember homes being taken out, but that tornado in 99 was pretty catastrophic. Imagine if homes had been in their path. And I just want to point out that John Pike also told us how these insurance companies are determining if you're one of those homes that's in an area that they're like, that's a problem.
What they're using, Dave and Debbie, is they're using maps that have been developed kind of by the industry and through fire prevention associations and so forth that have said these could be areas that could be high risk.
And insurance companies, and we've seen this specifically in Florida, have gone out of business because there were so many claims. Let me just give Hurricane Ian, the most recent hurricane, an example, an idea of how much that cost. $112 billion in damage. That one hurricane, $112 billion in damage. It took out 52 or damaged 52,000 structures down there. Completely destroyed more than 5,000 homes. And it has put insurance companies out of business.
Since we're talking about Florida, can I take a right turn? A lot of that has to do with the fraudulent claims that were filed in Florida. That Florida had, I just read this weekend because I went down that rabbit hole. Florida has had, according to many reports, a tremendous amount of fraudulent claims filed by roofing companies that go door to door, and then they assess, they knock on your door and they assess, you got all kinds of damage there. They got to get, and then the actual insurance adjuster, claims adjuster, is that the right word? Who comes out to your home and
the
like,
adjuster.
Is that it?
Yeah.
I got it right. Okay. They're like, there's not that much damage, and so we're not going to pay that much, the amount that you are requesting, Mr. Roofing Company, and then they end up in court and fighting all these bogus claims. So Florida has that added issue of fraudulent claims when it comes to roofing, but in California, it seems to be the wildfires and the massive fires that we see, and then they're having. After that, they'll have some, mudslide issues as well because of the fires.
We have a city here in Utah, Woodland Hills. If you've ever been to Woodland Hills, there's a lot of forest around these homes, right? There are some areas in Utah, whether you're built on the side of the mountain, whether you're in the middle of a very forested area, there are some real threats, whether it's the wildfire, the earthquakes, the shifting earth, and there's a million different kinds of insurance, right? There's the typical homeowner's insurance, but that may not cover flooding. It may not cover this, may not cover that. So the idea of an insurance company just full on removing the possibility that your home could be insured, I would never buy a home that couldn't be insured. Never.
You may not be able to because mortgage companies require you
to
have homeowners insurance. Why? In case something happens to your home, they're not going to be left holding the ball, right? I mean, holding the bag. So it's a requirement. This has so many different layers to it that I'm certain that Jeff Kaplan and his team of reporters and producers will be going more in depth on this today during their show from 3 to 7. Also, watching the monitors here in studio, it looks like House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is gearing up to sell his debt deal to other members of Congress. Of course, President Biden, House Speaker McCarthy reaching an agreement this weekend. And now, Dave, the sales pitch goes forward. So it sits in the House Rules Committee today. It'll be debated there. And then once it comes out, a vote by the full House, and then it's on to the Senate. Lindsay Aerts in today for Maria Chaleos. Next.
KSL FM Midvale, KSL Salt Lake City. Listen on the KSL News Radio app and in your car at 102.7 FM. KSL News Radio, Utah's all-day companion for news.
Mom and Dad used to argue about everything, especially about Dad's drinking. My family went from totally crazy to quiet, calm, and even peaceful when Mom started going to Al-Anon family groups. I wanted a better relationship with Dad, so I asked Mom if she would take me to her Al-Anon meetings or to Alateen. I'm sure glad I did. If someone's drinking troubling you, you might be surprised at what you can learn in an Al-Anon or Alateen family group from people just like you. Call 1-888-4-ALANON or go to alanon.org.
Good afternoon. KSL News Time is 12 noon. I'm Lindsay Aerts in for Maria Chaleos today. Today is Tuesday, May 30th, and KSL's top story this hour. A quarry in Parley's Canyon is one step closer to getting approval, but there's still a lot of pushback from people who say it'll be dangerous for the environment. KSL News Radio's Amy Kobabe live with the story. Amy?
In the works for it's been in the works for a little over a year, and now the Utah Division of Air Quality has approved the proposal after looking at all the possible environmental impacts. But many opponents say there are too many negative environmental impacts, specifically the dust. But there's also concerns about blasting and noise. Granite Construction says that the local area would actually be perfect for future limestone needs. Basically, they're arguing that if the state wants to keep growing, we're going to need a quarry, and this is the perfect spot for it. The project is now open for public comments. Reporting live, Amy Kobabe, KSL News Radio.
Thank you, Amy. For the past few years, Utah got much less water than it needed to fill up lakes and reservoirs, but this year's record winter made up for most of that snowfall.
The drought left nearly a 14-inch water deficit going into this past winter, but KSL meteorologist Kevin Eubank says the record-shattering snowfall paid that back in full, even more in some places.
This has been an incredible turnaround. I mean, honest to goodness, you could not have scripted a more dramatic flip.
Kevin says almost all the state is now out of drought stage completely, but despite that, he says we need to take water conservation seriously to avoid getting back into the situation we were in just last year.
We have to change our mentality in Utah to be a water-conserving state, a water-wise state, and good stewards of the resource.
Adam Small, KSL News Radio.
Summer beach trip season is on after Memorial Day, and while Bear Lake has more water to play with this year, there's less beach to camp on, too. Bear Lake State Park manager Richard Drosbeck tells KSL TV just how much water we're talking.
In the past 4 weeks, it's come up almost 3 feet, which is really good for Bear Lake. That's a lot of water coming in.
The water will continue to flow off the mountains and take up valuable parking spots on the beach. However, don't be timid about dipping your toes. Drosbeck says that runoff water will actually get warmed by the sun by the time it gets to the park. Willard Bay is full for the first time in 9 years. The man-made reservoir covers 10,000 acres and stores more than 1 billion gallons of water. KSL's top national stories this hour. Lawmakers don't have much time to vote on a compromise bill that would raise the debt ceiling while cutting spending. ABC's Karen Travers says the White House officials are now trying to convince Democrats to vote yes.
That starts with the president reaching out to lawmakers, Democratic lawmakers, to try to get them on board to get this across the finish line. Senior White House officials are doing the same thing, talking to groups of Democratic lawmakers and making one-on-one outreach efforts to try and lock down support for this, knowing that there will be House Republicans who vote no.
Lawmakers have until June 5th to approve a bill. On Capitol Hill today, part of the proposed debt ceiling deal would put additional work requirements on older Americans receiving food assistance. Maurice Pressis with the Utah Department of Workforce Services tells Dave and Dujanovic the current age limit is 49 years old.
The age limit would actually be changing to include folks who are through age 54. So the requirement would actually change from age 18 to age 54.
As part of the proposal, this age group of able-bodied adults would have to work at least 80 hours a month to get food stamps. The numbers are in. Air travel over Memorial Day weekend topped pre-pandemic levels.
The TSA says it screened 12 million people over the long holiday weekend from last Thursday to Monday. That's an increase of more than 216,000 travelers from the same weekend in 2019. The weekend was the biggest test yet for the airlines after last year's summer meltdowns of cancellations and delays that left thousands of passengers stranded, including over last year's Memorial Day weekend alone when 7,000 flights were scrapped. Derek Dennis, ABC News.
Disgraced Theranos CEO Elizabeth Holmes will be moving into her new home, a federal prison, where she's been sentenced to spend the next 11 years. The judge who sentenced Holmes recommended that she be incarcerated in a prison camp in Texas for overseeing a blood testing hoax that became a parable about greed and hubris in Silicon Valley. When she enters prison, Holmes will leave behind a nearly 2-year-old son and a 3-month-old daughter. A horrifying scene unfolded on a Florida beach boardwalk last night after shots were fired into a crowd. More than a half a dozen, including children, needed hospitalization for bullet wounds. ABC's Victor Okenda is in Hollywood Beach, Florida, with details.
Chaos as shots rang out, people running to safety from the beach in Hollywood, Florida.
We received a call of multiple people shot. When officers arrived on scene, there were 9 victims with gunshot wounds.
The gunfire erupting around 6:30 p.m. as beachgoers were celebrating Memorial Day.
I heard like pop, 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 like about 6-7 shots. Everybody started running. Everyone was praying, like it was terrifying.
There was multiple shots at this place called Margaritaville.
5 adults and 4 children were shot, a 1-year-old among those hit.
Everyone is reportedly in stable condition this morning. First look traffic now. Let's turn to Ricky Meese. Ricky, how we looking?
We have a really nice drive in progress on the Valley Freeways, but a crash in Weber County, eastbound 20th West at 5600 South in Roy. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL News Time, 12:06.
Boyd Matheson helps you to think about the news differently.
Many of us are voting for candidates because we're afraid of the opposition.
Join an elevated conversation. Inside Sources from 1 to 3. Then Jeff Kaplan and his Minute of News on the drive home on KSL News Radio.
Here's an idea from your neighbor at Hercules Credit Union. Invest in you, right? Because all this time, the equity in your home has grown and grown and, well, grown. So think about a few changes to help it grow even more. Right now, the rates on a Hercules home equity line of credit is 3.99% for 6 months. 3.99%. That's the perfect way to invest in yourself. So you can get started on the maintenance projects you've been putting off for so long, like going solar, repurposing the basement, or use it to pay off high-interest debt, or maybe just go on a much-needed vacation. Hercules will loan up to 80% loan to value on your home. And it's all so simple to access with your Hercules Visa card. No need to call or come in. It's just that easy. You know why? Because that's the Hercules way. Get details at HerculesCU.com. HerculesCU.com. Hercules Credit Union. It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Question: what will you find on all over-the-counter or OTC medicine packages to help you choose the right drug and use it safely? The answer: the drug facts label. This label lists the medicine's active ingredients and purpose, how much to take, and warnings you should know before using it. Remember, even OTC medicines you buy without a prescription can cause side effects you don't want. So follow the information listed on the drug facts label. For more information, visit fda.gov/drug facts label. A message from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
KSL News Time, 12:08. The record winter has mostly made up for 3 years of shortcomings for Utah's lakes and reservoirs. That is a story we are following this afternoon. We'll continue to follow it here on KSL News Radio. Be mindful of your footing if you go hiking. Local business is reporting an increase in rattlesnake sightings. Kim Beck, the owner of Top Dog Snake Finders, tells KSL TV they normally see an increase of calls earlier in the year, but record snowpack likely changed things this year.
It's a little bit later this year because we had the never-ending winter this year, so it took the snakes a little longer to come out.
Beck says you don't have to worry about rattlers wanting any trouble with people. If you do see a rattlesnake, call it in, walk far around it, and don't try to catch it. Killing a rattlesnake could land you in legal trouble in Utah. This summer, it's looking to be a bit cooler than last summer, but then again, in Salt Lake City last year, we shattered several heat records.
We're not going to have a summer like 2022. That is such an anomaly that to repeat that twice, it's unheard of. So the good news is 2023 won't be as hot in the sense of 100-degree days.
KSL meteorologist Kevin Eubanks says the latter half of the summer will likely be cooler than last year because the El Nino pattern that's setting in will bring in monsoonal moisture earlier in the season. If your hiking buddy is your dog, be cautious of a dangerous weed that could severely injure your pet. KSL News Radio's Alexandria Bonilla reports.
Foxtails are a grassy weed with seed clusters at the top. The seeds are pointy, and some even have backwards pointed barbs. These seeds are easily lodged into dog fur, burrowing into the skin.
They work their way inward, causing infection, and they don't dissolve once they're in there. A lot of times pets will have a barb that makes its way in, and you won't notice for a couple of weeks.
The Humane Society of Utah Director of Marketing and Communication, Gwen Schuster, recommends keeping your yard clear of the weed, checking your pet for visible seeds, and watching for irregular behavior. Alexandria Bonilla, KSL News Radio.
After 4 days, the town of Camas can finally use their water without boiling it. A boil order was put in place after the health department declared E. coli in the water supply. Officials are still trying to figure out the cause of the contamination. KSL News Time, 12:10, just a little bit late for traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the nines, brought to you by Granite Credit Union, helping members since 1935. Hi, Ricky Meese.
Hey there, Lindsay. We are looking at a nice start to our Tuesday noontime drive. After a nice long holiday weekend, traffic is light and looking good on the Valley freeways. We had an accident just east of Frontage Road in Roy, eastbound 20th West, 5600 South. That has just been cleared. And a small accident in Tooele County, southbound Highway 36 at Mills Junction in Stansbury Park, but it was out of traffic on the right and already in the cleanup stages. Medical trouble in traffic, 3500 South Bangerter Highway. ARUP Blood Services is in need of blood donations. Now that school is out for summer, we need local residents to donate blood. They need your help. Visit utahblood.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Beautiful May weather on tap for today. We're going 83 by this afternoon, partly cloudy skies. Overnight lows in the upper 50s. And for tomorrow, low to mid 80s, partly cloudy skies, and a slight chance for a storm in the mountains. From the KSL Weather Center, I'm Matt Johnson.
And right now it's 76 degrees, beautiful in downtown Salt Lake City. And coming up on Utah's Noon News, one of the conditions of a proposed debt ceiling on Capitol Hill would be tighter work requirements for those receiving government food stamps. We'll go in depth on that coming up on KSL News Radio. 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. This is Utah's All-Day Companion for news.
Did you know you can get someone to shop for you? Stitch Fix really gets me in what I need. Even better, they save me a trip to the mall. It's easy. I share my style, size, and budget, and they do the shopping for me. Stitch Fix sends me things that fit and make me feel like a more stylish version of myself. I keep what works and send back the rest. No subscription required, no commitment, just my style. Stitch Fix. Get started today at stitchfix.com/radio.
Here's what happens when you get brand new custom vinyl windows from Advanced Window Products. All of a sudden, your house has more curb appeal. Your home is more secure. Your heating and air conditioning bills tumble, and you have a local company in business 37 years standing behind their work for life. But that's not all. Since they build your custom windows at their facility in Salt Lake, there's no middleman markup. So you can save money on the highest quality windows on the market. Argon-filled double-pane glass. Insulation within the vinyl framing. Top of the line, built to spec. They will create magnificent bow windows, doggy doors cut into the glass. Any color, it's all custom, all installed by their team, and every window is guaranteed for life. Rocky Mountain and Dominion offer rebates. Advanced Windows offers 60-month 0% financing, and right now, save $2,000 on 10 windows or more. So save now, pay later. Call Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, or visit advancedwindowsusa.com.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Lindsay Aerts. First,
more than a foot of water deficit left behind by years of drought has been completely erased by the record winter. I'm KSL News Radio's Adam Small.
Second, a new proposed quarry in Parley's Canyon is one step closer to approval, but opponents say it'll pump tons of dust into the Salt Lake Valley and negatively impact the environment. And third, our biggest traffic trouble spot.
Roadwork could slow you down. We've seen delays most of the morning. Highway 89, especially on the southbound side going from Layton into Kaysville. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Dry with highs in the mid-80s today, but more storms coming. I'm Matt Johnson.
And time for KSL's top national stories.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. A compromise bill to raise the debt ceiling now making its way through a committee today for review. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has indicated he wants a vote by tomorrow to give the Senate time to vote before the June 5th default deadline. ABC's Jay O'Brien says there are some bumps ahead. At least 18 hardline Republicans say they won't support it.
It's too late in the game to make changes, but instead what we are seeing are House Republicans continue that messaging to their members to say, look what we have done over the last few months. The thing that they repeatedly highlight to try to drum up support for this legislation is the president's own words that he wasn't going to negotiate on the debt ceiling, and Speaker McCarthy, other House Republican leaders telling their members, we made him negotiate on the debt ceiling, and this is the product of that legislation.
President Biden also working to shore up votes within his own party to get it passed. New GOP presidential candidate and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis will officially hit the campaign trail today. He'll hold an event later tonight in Iowa. The Carter Center has announced former First Lady Rosalind Carter has dementia. In a statement, the family says the 95-year-old continues to enjoy living in Plains, Georgia with her husband, former President Jimmy Carter. He's been receiving hospice care since February. Demolition of the partially collapsed apartment complex in Davenport, Iowa, now on hold. That after officials say at least 5 are still unaccounted for and 2 may be inside. Davenport Fire Marshal Jim Morris.
It is our goal to be able to conduct a search for additional occupants and any pets that still remain inside.
9 people have been rescued from the building since Sunday. Fighting in Ukraine intensifying, with Ukraine pushing forward with a counteroffensive campaign. Ukrainian forces said they shot down more than 20 drones in the capital city of Kyiv, and Russia claims a series of drones hit a Moscow neighborhood, and they blame Ukraine. You're listening to ABC News.
And time now for the KSL In Depth. New work requirements would go into place for people receiving food stamps under a proposed debt ceiling deal.
On the SNAP program, formerly known as food stamps, there are specific work requirements that folks have to comply to. Those are called employment and training. In addition to employment and training, there's something called ABOD work requirements, which is able-bodied adults without dependents. Those are folks that are age 18 to age 49 that currently have to meet additional work requirements. Otherwise, they lose eligibility after 3 months of being on SNAP. Like you said, the age limit would actually be changing to include folks who are through age 54. So the requirement would actually change from age 18 to age 54.
Maurice Pressis with the Department of Workforce Services tells Dave and Dujanovic this will mean able-bodied people without kids, also known as ABOD, in Utah would lose coverage.
So I'm not going to speculate what the intent of this was, but the end result will be a reduction in folks that are eligible to remain coverage. Usually what we see are folks that are under or required to participate in ABOD. Their average time on SNAP is roughly about that 3 months. I believe what we'll see is the change that those that are now through age 55 will kind of fall under that same occurrence and will most likely end up losing eligibility unless they're participating 80 hours a month in one of those activities that you've already covered.
And obviously these new requirements have not got into place yet. Both chambers of Congress still need to vote on them. KSL News Time 12:18. Traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the 9s. Brought to you by Granite Credit Union, helping members since 1935. Ricky Meese.
So far, so good on your noontime drive. Valley Freeway traffic rolling along and looking very good. We had a medical problem in traffic reported about 10 to 15 minutes ago. I'm not seeing it with the camera's angle at this point. 3500 South Bangerter Highway, and it does look like traffic is able to get through there. Where I have seen slowdowns, and a lot of this is due to construction, it is that time of year. The southbound side of Redwood Road between 3500 and 4700 South in Taylorsville has seen some delays possible, although it's pretty clear right now southbound. Highway 89 going from Layton to Kaysville, but again, the northbound side also also has the left lane restricted. The Utah Symphony's Deer Valley Music Festival in Park City features Ben Folds, Leanne Rimes, the Beach Boys, and more. June 30th through August 4th in Park City at DeerValleyMusicFestival.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL 7-day forecast. How about some dry skies today again? Partly cloudy, 83. 80s tomorrow again, partly cloudy skies, and a slight chance for a storm in the mountains. We'll then keep the thunderstorms back in the forecast Thursday, Friday, and Saturday with highs in the upper 70s. Beautiful weather. We then go into the low 80s with a chance for storms on Sunday, partly cloudy, 84 by Monday. From the KSL Weather Center, I'm Matt Johnson.
And right now, beautiful 76 degrees and partly cloudy in downtown Salt Lake City. The 7-day forecast brought to you by Performance Automotive Bountiful. Did you guys go see the new Little Mermaid movie over the Memorial Day weekend? Spoilers, I have not seen it yet, but I think it's the same as the last one. We've got some news on that coming up on KSL News Radio.
If your stunning home has gone a little stale, it might be time to contact your local CertaPro painters. We bring the power of pro to every job. That's CertaPro's power to do the job right, the first time, every time, and the power to renovate your home without breaking down walls. Take your home from blah to booyah. Get on CertaPro's schedule today at CertaPro.com. The power of pro. Each CertaPro painter's business is independently owned and operated.
Wouldn't it be great if life came with a remote control? You know, you could hit pause when you needed to, or hit rewind, like that time you knocked down that wasp's nest. Uh-oh. Well, life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. With early diagnosis and a few healthy changes, you can stop prediabetes before it leads to type 2 diabetes. To learn your risk, take the 1-minute test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
Quarters. Just 25 cents. That's hardly anything, right? The retirement specialists at Capital Wealth Advisors see quarters a little differently. A quarter is a lot when it's a quarter of your retirement savings. Do you want to pay 25% or more in taxes during your retirement? Capital Wealth Advisors can create a plan to help address taxes in retirement. If the only time you think about taxes is when you file them, you do not have a tax strategy. But it's not too late to get one with the help from Capital Wealth Advisors. Act now to make sure you're not paying a quarter, dime, or even a penny more than you should. Call the team at Capital Wealth Advisors at 801-210-5500 to schedule your complimentary retirement tax analysis. A quarter saved is a quarter earned. Call 801-210-5500 now. That's 801-210-5500. Firm offers insurance services but may not give tax advice. Advisory services offered through Capital Wealth Advisors, LLC, a state of Utah registered investment advisor.
Matthew.
Huh? Oh, sorry.
It's okay. I just need you to listen to me.
I know that a lot of times, Mom, it might not seem like I'm listening to you, but I am. I hear you. And what you say really does matter to me.
I mean, let's be honest. No kid likes rules, but I get why we have them. I hear you, and I know it's because you care.
All the talks we've had over the years, including what you've told me about not using alcohol and other drugs, they stick with me. And believe it or not, they really do make a difference, especially at times that matter most.
Hey, want a drink?
No thanks, I'm good. So thank you, Dad, for talking and preparing me for what's ahead.
Thanks, Mom, for never giving up and always being my biggest fan.
Thank you for letting me know what you expect, so I can try to meet your expectations.
Thank you for talking.
For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
If you've got a honey-do list with electrical, plumbing, heating, or air conditioning projects on it, Any Hour Services can help. Call Any Hour Services, electrical, plumbing, heating, and air. anyhourservices.com.
Join KSL in the Greenhouse Show this Saturday at the Weber Basin Water Conservancy District's Garden Fair. The district's Learning Garden is at Highway 89 and 193 in Layton. It's a free event from 8 to 2. KSL News Time, 12:24. That is the sound of cheering as fans gave a standing ovation to Chicago White Sox pitcher Liam Hendriks. He returned to the mound just 6 months after being diagnosed with lymphatic cancer after going through chemotherapy and rehab. Well done. We're watching Utah's Money. Streaming services have been slashing their libraries to save money. Cutting down content saves money on licensing fees. Investors have been putting pressure on companies like Netflix and Hulu to show a profit instead of just boasting big subscriber numbers. People with Regents Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance might have limited options as soon as the end of June if the company doesn't come to a contract agreement with University of Utah Health. The insurance program covers more than 120,000 people in the state. I'm not going to sing along to this. Don't do it, Lindsay. Disney's live-action remake of The Little Mermaid brought in $95.5 million this weekend. Fast X from the Fast and Furious franchise came in second with a total of $23 million this last weekend. And your money at this moment, the markets are a little bit mixed today. The Dow is off 108 points, sitting at 32,985. The S&P is down 2.3 points, and the NASDAQ is up 37 points. A New York lawyer is learning don't rely on ChatGPT to write court documents. The attorney involved in a lawsuit against an airline used the AI system to create a court brief, but ChatGPT referenced court cases that didn't exist. The judge was not impressed, and the attorney is facing sanctions.
It may be summer, but the news isn't slowing down this year.
Ankle deep water at Wasatch Hollow.
Guilty on all charges. State leaders going into a special session. Make KSL your go-to each morning this summer. Utah's Morning News with Tim and Amanda starts at 5. We talk through the biggest stories with Dave and Dujanovic at 9 and Boyd Matheson at 1. Then drive home with key news updates with Jeff Kaplan from 3 to 7. Your all-summer companion for news. KSL News Radio.
Finding great people to hire is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. It's pretty difficult, right? Well, ZipRecruiter has mastered finding a needle in a haystack, so they take it to the next level. They make hiring so simple that it's like finding a needle in a needle stack. And that's why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. Here's what it's like to use ZipRecruiter. They have so many qualified candidates that it's easier to find the right ones for your roles. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. That's a lot of needles. So how do they do it? ZipRecruiter's powerful technology sends you candidates who are a great match for your job, and you can even invite your top choices to apply. So if you want less hay and more needles, head to ZipRecruiter.
ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. At ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
If you're talking, they will hear you.
We all want our kids to grow up safe and healthy, so we show them how. And we tell them with honest conversations that let them know what we expect. Not just one time, but every chance we get. That's especially important when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. Kids not only need to know the dangers and how to avoid them, they need to hear it often from you. And when it comes to pain medications, opioids, they need to know that they should never be taken without a prescription and never shared with friends or family. It's dangerous and illegal. So talk with your kids and guide them through the challenges of growing up safe and healthy. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
So talk, they hear you. You can do it if you try.
Traffic and weather together. Brought to you by Granite Credit Union, helping members since 1935. Hi, Ricky Meese.
Hey there, Lens. We are looking at a really nice and quiet drive on all the Valley freeways. But as UDOT has tweeted, it is the season. Our state flower is in bloom, the construction barrel. And you are going to see slowdowns due to road work in Taylorsville. This is southbound Redwood Road going from 3500 to 4700 south. Also in Summit to Wasatch County, southbound Highway 40 from Jordanelle down to River Road. Box Elder County is for the birds. The spring migration is in full swing at Bear River Migratory Bird Refuge. Find out more at visitboxeldercounty.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
We'll see a high today of 83 degrees with lots of sunny skies, a few clouds out there. About the same for tomorrow. We dip off in temperature a little bit for Thursday with a chance for rain showers, about 50% chance for rain showers on Thursday and Friday of this week. Right now it is 76 degrees.
You're listening to Utah's New News with Maria Chaleos on KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Good afternoon. KSL News time is 12:30. I am Lindsay Ertz in for Maria Chaleos today. KSL's top story this hour, UDOT says they're making progress on pothole repairs after the harsh winter. KSL News Radio's Hugo Ricard-Bell has more.
The heavy winter has kept UDOT busy well into the spring with flood prevention and now pothole maintenance being a top priority.
Once the water gets into cracks in the road and you have the freeze-thaw cycle, that can really accelerate the pothole problem.
UDOT's John Gleason says to keep up with all the extra maintenance work after the heavy winter, they had to shuffle some funds from other projects.
We did see a transfer of funds from our highway construction project fund just to make sure that we can address all of those necessary issues.
Areas of I-215 seem to have had the worst of the potholes and are the focus for crews at the moment. Hugo Ricard-Bell, KSL News Radio.
KSL's top national story this hour from ABC News. Former First Lady Rosalind Carter, the wife of former President Jimmy Carter, is battling dementia. The Carter family announced it in a statement today and says that she continues to live happily at home with her husband in Plains, Georgia. ABC's Steve Osinsami says Rosalind was an early voice for mental health awareness.
She has been a leading mental health advocate for much of her life, starting in the Carter White House. She's tried very hard to start the conversation about, and she was one of the, long before we were openly talking about mental health in the way that we do today, she was leading the charge to treat mental health and to talk about mental health as if we would talk about any other human illness.
We're also learning that President Carter's grandson says the former president has absolutely bounced back from what they thought were his final days in home hospice at one point. Russia is reacting to the drone attack on Moscow.
Talking to reporters in Moscow, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov calls the attack a response by Kyiv to what he says were very effective strikes on one of Ukraine's decision-making centers over the weekend. Most of the drones in Moscow were shot down. There was little damage, and forensic teams have been collecting debris. Russia's defense minister, meanwhile, sternly vows to react as harshly as possible. Tom Rivers, ABC News at the Foreign Desk.
The Davenport, Iowa apartment building that partially collapsed over the weekend is set to be demolished, even though some are urging officials to wait.
Johnny Wood says she's not convinced everyone who was in that building has gotten out.
The news report said everyone is accounted for. I said, if everyone is accounted for, where is my nephew?
Her nephew, Brandon, and one other person could still be inside, which is why Cassandra Irwin is against the demolition that had been scheduled for Tuesday.
Unacceptable, completely unacceptable. There's still families looking for their loved ones in there. And they could be stranded, they could be unconscious, they could be hurt.
The rear portion of the 6-story building collapsed Sunday night after months of complaints from residents about plumbing and water leakage in the building. Sherry Preston, ABC News.
President Joe Biden says he, quote, feels good about the debt ceiling and budget deal negotiated with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. The Republican speaker urged skeptics today to look at the victories in the package. The White House and congressional leaders are working to ensure the passage in time to lift the nation's borrowing limit and prevent a U.S. default. A key test will be today when the House Rules Committee considers the package. The full House is expected to vote tomorrow. Utah senators are divided over the proposed debt ceiling bill.
Senator Mitt Romney supports the debt ceiling deal. According to a statement from his office over the weekend, Romney says he appreciates that there were some spending concessions, but was disappointed entitlement reform wasn't addressed. Senator Lee says he is disappointed